Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
Context of white supremacy. Gusty Renegade Justice in for another program, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy, what it is, and how it works. Today's date, Thursday, December 29th, 2011. So I have been told. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the broadcast. I want to get right to work, see if we can get as much constructive info as possible. Our guest for today's program, author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, also author of the Complementary Word Guide, both very important tools in helping black people, non-white people get a better understanding of what racism, white supremacy is, and how it works. If you need a copy of the code book or the word guide, you can go to the following address, tiny.cc/Fuller in all caps, Fuller in all caps. So I'll give it to you one more time, tiny.cc/Fuller, and Fuller is in all caps. You can print out the order form. You can get the word guide, the code book. If you get them together, you can get a discount. Pop it in the mail, and you should be good to go. As I said, always a pleasure to have our guests with us for today. We are all still learning, and I think a lot of us have learned a great deal from our guest joining us for the 18th time, Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Mr. Fuller, are you with us?
I'm here.
Outstanding. Thank you so much again for always being so gracious with your time. Real pleasure to have you on the program to get a chance to learn more from you. I want to get right to work. We had a admitted racist on a program a little while back, and we had, I thought, one of the better questions that was asked as we got to the close of the broadcast. A black female, she called in and she said, how do you codify using your words, and what strategies do you employ when you are dealing with a either admitted racist or racist suspect, and you suspect that this person may be trying to deceive you? And I thought that you might have some suggestions. Do you have some codified techniques to utilize to help thwart someone practicing deception against you?
Well, yes, you always be on the alert for deception, and so you always should think that if you suspect the person who you're talking to is a racist, then you just expect to be deceived, and you just have it in your mind. Everything that this person is saying, how is this person going about deceiving me? Because you just assume that the person is trying to deceive you. The person is trying to mislead you. If they have volunteered to talk to you, they're trying to mislead you in some way. So that will be detrimental to you. So that's just automatic anyway. If you're talking to any white person that you suspect to be a racist. And of course, if the person admits that he or she is a racist, then you just expect a deception anyway, but you would expect it anyway because even if the person doesn't, because if the person is able to be a racist, the person may be one. And so you're always in the mode of being on the alert that the racist is trying to deceive you to your detriment, and or the racist is going to be violent against you. Of course, deception is a form of violence, according to counter-racist logic.
I know I've concluded, I think one of the things that can be beneficial is to make an effort to use the most accurate terms, that can be one way that you can use words to try to stop people from deceiving you. Do you think that's accurate?
Sure, by asking questions about everything that they say and seeking answers that you think are constructive enough to be satisfactory to you, that might be of some help in having you learn what the person is saying and how you can use whatever you learn. Always be in a learning mode. And even with a person who you think is trying to do harm to you, you want to learn what is going on. The more you learn, the better. And that's in any situation. The more you learn about what the truth is about what is happening, the better it is for you. As long as you're not afraid to learn and be in a learning mode, be willing to learn and to listen, and doesn't make any difference what the person is saying. The person has volunteered to talk to you, apparently. And if you have volunteered to listen, you're just being in a learning mode. That's all. You're trying to learn what the person is doing, what the person is saying, whether or not there's anything that the person is saying that you can use for a constructive purpose. Because all learning can be used for a constructive purpose.
Okay. I know you have, I've heard you give out the technique in terms of compensatory conversation control and different things you can use when you're talking to a white person to try to make things as constructive as possible. Just anything else with regards to techniques or using words, using terms to help you cut down on confusion, deception when talking to a racist suspect?
Yes, that's the procedure. You're not trying to just argue or make points just to show how smart you are, or you shouldn't be, or something like that. You should just be in a learning mode. That's all. It's just about learning. It's all about learning. Learning about how people think, people that you're on this planet with, in this universe with, people that you share the universe with. So you want to know as much as possible. So if anybody's willing to tell you anything that you might can use for a constructive purpose, you listen. And then you can determine later whether what you learn, how what you learn can be used for a constructive purpose. Even things that are being said that you might perceive to be intentionally to be non-constructive to you. You can learn that these things that are being said are with the intention of being non-constructive. That's learning, and that's constructive learning. Just go into a learning mode, not a contest mode to talk about, to show a person that you may be smarter than the person that you're talking to. That's not the intent. A listener already knows what he or she knows. What the listener doesn't know is what the other person is going to say and what the other person and how the other person is going to say it. And so the mechanics of that is to ask questions. Ask questions about what? Everything that's being said until you get all the satisfactory answers. Satisfactory to whom? To you as the listener. That's the United Independent concept.
I see. Okay. I also definitely wanted to ask President Obama, non-white person in the White House. I have seen where many victims of racism have become very confused as a result of his presence. I think I heard you say from the very beginning that this could be, as white supremacy still exists, this could be an example of racial showcasing. Have you seen an increase in the amount of confusion amongst non-white people as a result of President Obama being in the White House?
Well, I haven't heard anyone voice that, so I can't really say. I don't know what people are thinking. But I said myself, before he even got the position and the title of president, that non-white people should not expect him to be able to do a lot for them, because he can only do what the white supremacists will allow him to do. So you shouldn't have that great expectation that he would be able to do very much. Probably not very enough to even be significant in behalf of non-white people, because the white supremacists could do that themselves. They wouldn't need him for that. They wouldn't need him to carry out that mission and to, quote, unquote, take credit for helping black people. If the white supremacists who are running the planet, by the way, wanted to help black people, they could do that themselves and do it very efficiently. They could do it instantly. Just whatever help black people needed in any area of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. They could do all the constructive things that need to be done, and they could do them in a very short period of time if they wanted to. Apparently, they don't want to. They want the confusion to continue, because that's what we have. Large numbers of black males dropping out of school, getting disgusted, or being put out of school. Some recent newspaper articles have said, just in the last few days, said many of them are being suspended. Some don't come back. And then when they don't, that education, or you might call the learning process, is very important. There's some things that are very important: reading, writing, arithmetic, in order to get through the world in a somewhat constructive fashion. It's difficult enough without having these tools: reading, writing, arithmetic, the greater forms of mathematics, science. But when you don't know much of anything about these tools or how to use them, then it makes it just that much more difficult. The white supremacists know that. In fact, in the case of black males and a growing number of black females, they intend for them not to learn very much of anything of constructive value. And they will instantly have all of the facilities ready to teach them anything that is of non-constructive value. They will entice them to learn more and more non-constructive things. And when black people learn non-constructive things, they do non-constructive things, and it's to their detriment, which is exactly what the white supremacists appreciate.
I know I've been hearing pretty much since 2008 when President Obama, when he won the election, I have been hearing a lot of black people who are making comments to me that would suggest confusion, where they are blaming President Obama for different things, blaming him for what happened in Libya, blaming him for the economy, blaming him for all sorts of things, where it just, to me, suggests that they do not understand the people who are still in charge: racist man, racist woman. I'm just speaking for myself. I haven't really seen where it's been his presence in the White House has been a benefit to non-white people or moved in the direction of replacing white supremacy with justice. And I wanted to get your view. Have you seen any constructive value to President Obama being in the White House for non-white people, or his presence? Is that moving us closer to justice?
No, I haven't seen that, but for the reasons I just gave. But I didn't expect it. No non-white person should expect President Obama to do anything for them. Anywhere on the planet, ever in that position, he is subject to the white supremacists. There's no non-white person on the planet who's not subject to the system of white supremacy. Therefore, any non-white person, all non-white people can make proposals. They can make suggestions. I mean, in this area of the world, a black person who is a slave in the old days, in that frame of reference, within that context, on a plantation, could, hat in hand, go up to the big house and ask the master, please give me more food. Please help me to feed my children. Please give me some better tools to work with in the field. Give me, a pair of your old gloves or something. Give me some of your hand-me-down shoes. Give me something, to make things a little more pleasant while I'm on this planet. Please, master, please try to do that. I would appreciate if you do that. All non-white people do this, either directly or indirectly, every day, just to be able to get by on this planet, because the white supremacists run all non-white people's business on this planet. And if they decide, well, I might do it, and I'll think about it, or I might not do it, or I might not even think about it, and then that's that. And President Obama is in the same position, just like I am, to do just that. Ask, make a suggestion, make a request. He can't make them do anything. Or rather, if he can, he has the same power that I have to make them do whatever's going to be done. If he has the power, I have the power to make the white supremacists help me. How would he go about doing that? President Obama telling the white people of this planet who believe in white supremacy, those who do, I'm not talking about those who don't, I'm talking about those who do, and those who do believe in white supremacy are the most powerful. President Obama could address them at any time and say, do something to help black people. Help me to do something to help black people. And the white supremacists say, I'm not going to do any such thing. I'm not paying any attention to you at all because I don't have to. And you can't make me. And you don't know anybody who can make me. So shut up and get out of here. That'll be the end of that story. I could receive the same message. And indirectly, I do receive the same message. It's a silent message, but it's very pronounced in effect. Every black person, if they tell the truth, that's the message they receive all the time. About some things that they want. Some things they're allowed to have. Some things they're not allowed to have. And if they don't like it, so far we haven't figured out what to do about it. That also fits President Obama. What would he do? Who would he turn to and say, make these people do what needs to be done? Anything short of the creator of the universe, he can forget it. Nobody else has the muscle so far. And that doesn't say that people can't get the muscle, but what people? Well, people like myself. How could I get it? Figure out how to do it, just like he would have to figure out how to do it. Because so far, no person who is classified as non-white anywhere on this planet has figured it out. Many black people have claimed, I know what to do about it, but they haven't proven it by doing it. So good luck with that.
context of white supremacy, again, I guess Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. One point I did want to make around President Obama, and again, I've just an ever-growing number of victims of white supremacy who seem to be very confused and are angry with President Obama, blaming him for things. You pointed out that when you do hear a lot of black people complain that they don't point out specific things that he can do and or should be doing that would be of constructive value. It'll just be a gripe or a complaint of some sort and not, bang, this is something that he could be doing that he's not doing that would help black people. Could you touch on that?
Sure. Under VGQ, which means Victims Guaranteed Qualification, a black person can say anything they want to about race, racism, or counter-racism. You're qualified to do that. Every black person is qualified. And they're qualified to make suggestions. But if they say that President Obama's not doing what they want done, then there's one major alternative that each and every black person has. And it's obvious if you follow the logic. And that is, okay, he won't do it. Then they have two words that they can say to themselves: I will. So far, I don't see anybody making that move. He won't do it, doesn't know how to do it, doesn't have the nerve to do it. I'll do it. Now that's scary. It's very easy to sit up in the audience, sit up in the bleachers, sit up in the grandstand, and say, that quarterback is no good. That's relatively easy. Relatively easy compared to what? Compared to someone saying, or the quarterback that's on the field, looking up in to where the spectators are, and heaving that ball up there to the person who is shouting the loudest about, you don't know what you're doing, or you don't have the nerve to carry out your job. Heave that ball right up there as they bring it right back down here on this field. And here's my helmet. Take care of the next few plays. That's a different ball game altogether when you look at it from that viewpoint, when you are the one on the field. Make it happen. Because all victims of racism are equal when it comes to the white supremacists. Every black person on this planet is equal when it comes to taking on the white supremacists. That's a huge job, biggest job on earth. That's the biggest assignment on earth for any non-white person who says racism is no good and I am going to get rid of it. Well, you're not going to have a lot of competition there. You got the field to yourself. You hold the ball, do what you got to do, if you know what to do. So far, no one has proven that they know what to do. The evidence shows that. Lots of people are wishing for it. I wish. All the time. Lots of people are trying to make plans. I try to make plans. I write books. I go on the radio. I go on the internet. I try to figure out what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say. Haven't been successful yet. Why? Where's the evidence? Because the evidence shows the system of white supremacy is alive and well, worldwide. No one, even people with the best of intentions, many of whom are dead now, no one has proven that they know what to do about replacing the system of racism with the system of justice. Justice meaning in a compensatory definition I had to produce, because there is no legal definition for the word justice, I've been told some years ago. So I made up a compensatory definition, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. I think that's the best possible definition that we can get so far. Someone comes up with a better one, we go with that one. But in the meantime, trying to achieve that, it hasn't happened. I can talk about it. I have been talking about it. The racists, if I've caught their ear or they have seen something that I have written, they are aware that I have written it. They are aware that I have talked about it. But the racists say, yes, but I hold all the cards. Now, if that Fuller fellow wants to replace the system of racism with justice, let him give it his best shot. Because right now, nobody's making me do anything that I don't want to do. And nobody, none of those black people out there have proven that they're smart enough to come up with a formula that can make me do anything that I don't want to do. None. None of those who are breathing now, or none of those whose ancestors came before them and died trying. Hasn't happened. Yet some of them claim that they are smart. They are smart than other black people. That's about the best they can do. They may be smarter than some white people, but they are not smarter than a white person that believes in white supremacy, because they haven't proven that they are. I always tell them what to do. They never tell me nothing. They beg for a job, beg for a house, beg for a side of town that I can assign them to go somewhere and try to breathe and get something to eat from me, because if they get any food at all, it's going to be from me. They decide to cross an ocean, got to get my permission. They decide to wander the streets. I will determine what street they can wander on. They want to sleep in the park, got to get permission from me. They don't tell me what to do. I tell them everything. Them and people that they call their kin folks, their so-called wives, which they don't have, because I own them too. That's the reality. So what do a lot of black people do? They look at it and say, this is scary. And so I'll do the cheap thing. I'll blame it all on Obama. I wouldn't be in the shape that I'm in if it hadn't been for Obama. If it wasn't for Obama, I would be super rich. I wouldn't have nothing in my way. It's that black guy in that White House who's keeping me from being the great success that I was destined to be. And if it wasn't for him, I'd be on a roll. Oh, yeah. Anybody can say that. That's the easy way out. And I can understand it. Because when you're beaten down so bad, you look at the slave who's next to you, chained to you, and you say, you ain't the one supposed to say quitting time. I'm the one supposed to say quitting time. Like in the movie Gone with the Wind.
In your view, are black people, are we afraid of white people?
We're afraid of the white supremacists. Not afraid of white people just because they're white. We're afraid of white people who say, either directly or indirectly to us, and we usually get that message, hey, buddy, I believe in white supremacy, and I practice what I believe in. What do you believe in? Because I believe in the most powerful system on earth that has been proven, not something that I'm trying to prove. This is something that I proved a long time ago. My ancestors proved it, that I can whip on you anytime I want to, and it's nothing that you are smart enough to know what to do about it. Best thing you can do is try to get along with me until I decide that even if you get along with me, if I just want to get mad at somebody, I can take it out on you, and there's nothing you can do about that either. Nobody you can even talk to stop me. You and everybody you know is dumb when you compare them with me and my buddies. Lock you up whenever I get ready and have you begging to get out. You can walk around and act like you're a big cheese in my cell block. Put on a lot of muscles, make a lot of tattoos. You can curse everybody out, but you couldn't even do that if I didn't let you. If I decide to put you in greater and greater and greater confinement, like a little tin box maybe, up under the ground, let you sweat by yourself, till you learn who's your master. Boy, I know you. I know you. I know your father, your grandfather. I had them in chains. You can get in each other's face. You can run around with your little 9mm killing each other. Don't you get in my face at all. I'll let you talk and act. Sometimes let you talk and act tough to me. But remember, I'm letting you do this, because I don't have to let you do anything, including breathing. And there's nothing can stop me. And you don't know anybody who's big enough to do it. So quit acting. And that's what I say in the books that I've written. We need to stop being actors. We're always talking about keeping it real. That's black people in the Northwestern Hemisphere. But we're the most unrealistic people on the planet. Quietly looked upon as a bunch of jokes. But people talk nice to us because they don't want to be bothered with us. They'll talk nice, but at the same time in their thoughts, they couldn't think anything else except these people are just about completely worthless as any creatures can possibly be. And how do I say that? I'm talking about this is the voice of the white supremacists now, because I have made them that way. The only way they get to be worth anything is when I make them worth something. I tell them what they're worth. They don't know. They don't even know what to do with themselves when they get up in the morning, except what I tell them. Go here, go there. That's the only time they make sense. Other than that, they don't know anything. And proof of it is I can say, hey, I'm going to make some hats out of hubcaps. I got surplus hubcaps in my warehouse on some cars that I haven't even manufactured yet. And I don't know what to do with those surplus hubcaps. I don't want to throw them away. I got millions of them. But I got a bunch of black people out there who are just looking for something to do. They don't know what to do. They just look at this great big universe, a great big world. Look up and down the streets. They don't know what to do or where to go at any given moment. So I always, as usual, find something for them to do. So the next thing I'll do is the little money I've allowed them to have, I'm going to take these hubcaps that I ordinarily would put on some cars, and I'm going to say that they are no longer hubcaps, that they are hats. And I'll have all these millions of black people walking around with these hubcaps on their heads. And give it a fancy name like Zapsters. You know. And people will be asking, what's a Zapster? Hey, man, that's the new hats, man. I mean, you square. You don't know what's up. You don't know. You haven't bought you a Zapster yet. $800 a piece, man. I got two of them. My buddy got them at a discount. He works over there where they got the stuff stored. And some white supremacists, about 23 years old, right out of college, thought up the idea. We'll sell them to the black people. We don't have to throw them away. Call them Zapsters. What's a Zapster? That's a hat that black people wear. That's their identifying thing. They always need something to identify themselves with, as if their skin color doesn't identify them enough. They always got to have something artificial, something that I made up. Or if they make it up, I'll be the one who will control it, and I'll sell it to them for the little money that I allow them to have, and have them out here killing each other to have them. And a name like Zapster would be appropriate, too, because they'd be zapping other black people trying to get them. Put 5 shots in somebody and grab that Zapster. Keep it in the closet for about a week and then come out wearing it. A hubcap. That's the way millions of us think, rather than say, wait a minute, I'm not doing nothing of the kind. I'm not going out and buying none of that stuff. I'm not going to even wear it if they give it to me. I'm going to start doing some thinking for the first time in my existence on my own. Now you're evolving from a traditional victim of white supremacy, slowly coming out of it and heading toward being a universal man and or a universal woman. They'll have some for black females too. They'll be pulling each other's weaves off, fighting over them in some big warehouse. Unless what? Unless they start doing some thinking on their own. I'm not trying. They should say, I'm not going to spend the rest of my days on this planet just trying to satisfy somebody else's idea of what I should be doing. What's fashionable for me? What's suitable for me as a black person? Now, why am I saying all this? Hopefully, to have us think about something else other than what we're just taught to think. And what does that mean because Neely Fuller is saying it? Nothing. It means absolutely nothing, but it's something to think about. We need, all of us, everybody, anybody on the planet really, should be thinking about using their own minds. Everybody is an individual. You don't have to listen to Neely Fuller. Who's he? Just another victim of white supremacy. So you can listen to anybody and listen to everybody, including the white supremacists. Particularly, listen to the white supremacists. Particularly when they talk the way that I'm talking now. Don't get angry. Listen to them, because these are the people who control everything. And make your evaluation as to what part of what they are saying, what you're going to do with it. What you are going to do with what they are saying, either to you or around you, even when they're talking to someone else. Listen. And that's a major part of what I wrote the books for, the counter-racist codes. Black people spend a lot of time watching each other. It's not a whole lot to learn there that you don't already know. You need to listen to and watch the people who you perceive to be the smartest and most powerful people on this planet. And that's those white people who believe in white supremacy, who believe in mistreating people based on color. They are the smartest, most powerful people on this planet. Now, that hurts a lot of people's feelings, but I just made a statement that's either true or false. And I say it's true, and the evidence proves it. Just because it hurts somebody's feelings, doctors hurt people's feelings all the time when they tell them. I'm quite sure right now, as I speak, there's some doctor somewhere, right, getting to the close of this year and going into another year by the calendar. There's some doctor telling someone right now, but with the shape that you're in, you won't make it within 2 months of the new year coming in. Now, who wants to hear that? The average person does not want to hear that. Some people call it the ugly truth. There's no such thing as an ugly truth. Truth is just truth. It either is or it isn't. And when I make remarks about the white supremacists being the smartest people, most powerful people on this planet, those white people who believe in mistreating people based on color are the smartest, most powerful people on this planet. Now, a black person who cannot face up to that truth and would rather believe that he's the smartest or she's the smartest has already shot themselves in the foot, because they're running away from the main thing that they definitely need, and that's the truth. We all need the truth about everything. We don't need any falsehood about anything ever, because that's what we have been fed, falsehood. And we have been acting on it. We have been told things are valuable that are not valuable. And we have been led to believe that something that's silly should be worshipped, and something that makes all the sense in the world should be avoided. And then we cry about the shape that we're in, which is understandable, if that's what we believe. Something that makes sense should be something embraced, should be glorified. The white supremacist says if it's something silly, go down there and give it to black people. They love something silly. They relish something silly. They worship anything that's silly. And something that's serious and constructive, they avoid it like it's a plague. That's why we can control them. They are people who love foolishness. Anything stupid, they run right to it, want armloads of it. And anything that will be of lasting help to them, they disdain it. In fact, they'll use terms like, oh, you're acting white. Get away from me. You saying something that makes sense. I don't want to hear nothing that makes sense. Talk some trash. I like that. You're not that way by nature, but we've been programmed that way. And the evidence shows it, which is why we're in the shape that we're in.
Context.
Now, if I said anything that's not true, everybody under BGQ, here again, just because Neely Fuller says something does not make it true. Who is he? Just another black person talking. That's all. But a person can look around and see if maybe one or two of the things that I'm saying might be true. I believe it's true. That's why I'm saying it. And I think that it is constructive, because the first step toward becoming smart is to be honest with yourself enough to say, because I do it all the time, that I'm ignorant. That's why I use the expression, I'm still learning. There's a whole ocean of things that I need to know that I haven't even heard of. I'll say several oceans, several universes of things that I really need to know that I have no idea about. But the first step toward not being ignorant is to admit that you don't know what you need to know. That's the first sign of intelligence. Babies are aware of this. Babies don't have any problems showing that they don't know something, because they're real curious. They see people walking across the floor, they want to walk across the floor, because they know that that's an excellent way of getting from one place to another. Now, just because they can't do it doesn't say that they're not thinking about doing it. And the next thing you know, if you don't walk, if you just wait a little while, you'll see that baby trying to at least crawl across that floor. Can't walk, but the baby's figured out there might be a way to get from one side of this room to another, because I see other creatures doing it. And I'm going to try to do it. They might cry about it for a little while, but they will continue to try. So the baby is admitting that he or she does not know how to do it, but they're going to try. And we can learn from babies. Someone once said, a little child can teach something to you. Just watch a little child, because we're all children in this big universe. Whether you're white or non-white, when you start comparing yourself to the power of the sun and all that, you don't know very much. Nobody does. Know something, but not compared to all the things that are out there to be known. So never, someone once told me, because I was the type of person that didn't like to admit that I didn't know something when somebody asked me a question. And someone observed that many years ago and exposed that to me. Let me know with these words: never be embarrassed about what you don't know. Never. Be embarrassed about not trying to find out. That's what you should be embarrassed about, to yourself, not to other people, to yourself. If you know you don't know and that you need to know, and you just keep telling yourself that you already know, now that's terrible. But when you know you don't know and you're trying to find out, now you are taking steps to becoming one of the people that you were destined to be, if you were going to carry out your destiny. And that is to learn everything that you need to know that you don't know. And don't be embarrassed and hold back in trying to find out. Find out from anybody who does know, which is how we learn most things. Somebody out there knows something. even people who are your enemy. They might can teach you something that you need to know. First of all, they can teach you that they are your enemy. You need to know that. Don't be embarrassed about finding that out. That might work for you.
Context of white supremacy. If you have questions you would like to ask Mr. Fuller, number to dial is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564943#. It was raised on the program yesterday, Justice. She was asking our guest, Pam, about the term interracial, and she read the passage from the Word Guide where you recommended that victims not use this word, and in fact, you write that the term interracial, that these are words that serve no purpose other than to promote greater confusion in the thought, speech, or action that should be designed to replace white supremacy with justice. Why do you recommend that victims of white supremacy not use the term interracial?
Because interracial implies that there's more than one race. It's not but one race, and that race is the white race. The only purpose for a person being a member of a race is to practice racism. It serves absolutely no other purpose whatsoever except to mistreat someone based on color. You can be a member of a fraternity, a sorority, a tribe, a group, an assembly of people, who are trying to climb a mountain. You can be a lot of things. But when you say that you are a member of a race in order to do what? Well, to have racial pride. Racial pride in order to do what? What are you proud of being a member of a race for? Well, because of what we do. What do you do? Well, lots of things. Lots of things like what? See, if you keep asking people questions, it'll take you right where you need to go. And don't help people with the answers. That's a part of the code. Just keep asking questions. You want to be a member of a race? Why do you want to be a member of a race? Because a race is something that you join. You're not born in a part of a race. You have to join a race, and you have to join with an intention. Otherwise, why be a member of a race? You have some kind of intention. What is that intention? So the white supremacists thought up the idea of racism according to logic. I won't say evidence because I'd have to present it. But according to logic, they are the ones who thought it up because they are the ones who are most successful at mistreating people based on color, which is all that is designed to do. It's not designed to do anything else. If I'm trying to be a member of a race, it means I intend to mistreat someone based on color or non-color. That's the only purpose that it can serve. It serves absolutely no other purpose. You can work with, you can do woodwork without being a member of a race. You can make a sailing ship without being a member of a race. You can plant corn without being a member of a race. So why be a member of a race? But the white supremacists thought of the idea. I'm going to mistreat people based on the color of those people, people that I can just look at and say, oh, you're somebody I can mistreat. Why can I mistreat you? Because you are not the color that I think you ought to be. And so I am going to abuse you because of it. It's a very simple formula, but it's the most powerful idea, political and religious idea that the world has ever seen. Very simple, not complicated at all. But the white supremacists make it complicated by going around telling people, oh, you are mixed race, you are biracial, oh, you are of the Afro race. You are of the Negro race. You are of the yellow race. You are this race. You are that race. And so you ask the logical question, why do you say these things? I say them because I'm powerful enough to say them, and if I can get you to believe it, then I can just jerk you around forever. And I am a member of the white race. But do you ever ask that person, what's the purpose of being a member of a race? Very simple question. How often do we ask that question? What's the purpose of being a member of a quote-unquote race? Sir, ma'am, what's the purpose? And let them answer. Like I said, the code says you ask a question, never help the person with the answer. Because then you give them a little wiggle room to become tricky, so that they later on they can say, oh, I didn't say that, you did. That's a part of their tricks too, the white supremacists. Watch for them to do that. They'll do it if you're asleep at the wheel. But there's no such thing as a biracial person. None. It's only one race, and that's the white race. Meaning what? All white people belong to the white race? No. It's a lot of black people who, if you look at them, look like they are white. But you have to join a race. And the first qualification you have to have is to be classified as white. But the white supremacists do all the classifying. If you notice that, they do the classifying. They determine who's white and who's not. And they write it down in books and on pieces of paper and in computers and whatnot. And say white race. But how many people ask the question, what's the purpose of a white race? Sir, ma'am, would you give me that information? What is the purpose? Does it serve a purpose? Apparently it's supposed to serve a purpose, so why do it? Why do something that doesn't serve a purpose? So what's the purpose? And let the person answer. Because I'm saying, following logic, because that's all I'm trying to follow. Logic came with the universe. In the system of white supremacy, and since nobody's explaining these things or even answering the question in a logical manner, what's the purpose of a race based on color? I can understand a foot race or, an auto race, bike race. I can understand that. But race based on color, in order to do what? What is it that is supposed to accomplish that is of constructive value? Name something. And the person who is supposed to answer the question is the person who is a member of a race, which logically speaking would be a white person who's a member of the quote-unquote white race, because there is no other so-called race. Now, what are the people walking around? I mean, what are they really, as far as colors are concerned? They are people who have color and non-color. White, which in political context is not considered a color. That's why the white supremacists call people of color colored people, which does not include white people. They made that up. It's kind of confusing, but they made it up. They say that they are not colored people, that they are white. So the question is raised, is white a color? Well, yes and no. Well, which is it, yes or no? Because if white is a color, then that's a color. So how can you say that the other people are colored people and don't include yourself when you said white is a color? Well, white is not a color. And, but it can be. But on the other hand, I mean, depending on what you're talking about, it might not be. And what do you have then? You got confusion, which is exactly what a white supremacist will do, confuse people. That's their stock in trade. They could not dominate without confusion. So you start off confusing people, first of all, about what the classifications are. At one time, they had 3 of them. Now they got about 20. And all of them make no sense at all. And if it doesn't sound logical, what I'm saying, all you have to do is just start asking questions, one question right after another. It'll lead you right where you need to go, and that is a thing called what? Truth, which is exactly what the white supremacists do not want anybody who is non-white to ever understand. The truth about anything, really. Why? Because their chief stock in trade is deception. And when you deceive people, you're trying to confuse them. And when you're trying to confuse people, there's a question about what your intentions are. Why confuse people unless you intend to harm them? Stop using the terms biracial, interracial. And when other people use it, ask them, what are you talking about? What's biracial, triracial, quadruple racial? What are you talking about? And according to whom? And in order to accomplish what? See, because that's the bottom line. What are you going to do with all these classifications? What are you trying to accomplish? Because everybody on this planet is either trying to do something constructive or non-constructive. So show me how all of this stuff that you're talking about, biracial, interracial, show me how it is constructive. But first of all, tell me what you're talking about. Why'd you come up with this idea in the first place? 3 classifications of people I have in the book. White, non-white, and white supremacists. That's it. No biracial, no interracial, no part-time racial. None of that. Hello?
Yes, sir. Again, Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., staying right in line with that confusion being generated around the term interracial and implying often sexual intercourse between black people and white people or non-white people and white people. In the code book, you have, this is on page 189, reasons why that sort of activity, tragic arrangements, should be avoided. You write that contrary to what many persons believe, no act of sexual intercourse and or sexual play between a white person and a non-white person under conditions dominated by white supremacy contributes in any way, directly or indirectly, to the elimination of racism. The white supremacists use sexual activity with, against their victims in a manner that causes their victims to become weaker and more confused in their efforts to resist the more soothing and sophisticated forms of deception and seduction as used by the white supremacists to refine the practice of white supremacy. I was just curious, what do you mean when you say the more soothing forms of deception and seduction that are practiced by a racist man and racist woman?
Well, if a person, if 2 people are engaging in sexual intercourse and also that's a physical act, and along with that, I mean, talking in a manner or acting in a manner that they are trying to bring comfort to the person, They're interested in being with the person in a constructive manner and whatnot, and they carry on in that fashion. That can be soothing to a person. And they say, after all, I mean, engaging in sexual intercourse is a very intimate act. And then if they add to that the words, I mean, that say that I want to be in your presence, that I find comfort in being with you, I would like to be of help to you, and you to be of help to me, not only when it comes to sexual intercourse, but in other things and other areas of activity. We like to hold hands and whatnot and walk along the beach and all this, and that can be soothing. And for a person who is very devious, it's a very sophisticated way of leading the person in the way that you want the person to go in other areas of activity. I mean, you can get the person to do a whole lot of other things once you get them in a joyous manner, or or what they would call getting thrills, or being soothed by having sexual intercourse with a person. You can pretty well lead a person in the way that you would want that person to go, whether your intentions are constructive or non-constructive. It's an excellent way. So the effects on the mind, sexual intercourse is not just a matter of body action. It's a manner of communicating. You're communicating also through the use of the mind, having influence on a person. So the white supremacists make it their business among non-white people to just spread out among non-white people, and one of the main things in their agenda is to, hey, let's engage in sexual activity. And if they, depending on how they want to steer it, they might have it in what you call anti-sexual activity, which is sometimes called homosex or lesbian sex. Just anything that will help them to strengthen their influence and have the person more cooperative. See, it's nothing like a cooperative, submissive person. You make your job easier if you're trying to dominate that person. If you get that person to participate in their own domination, it's much easier than fighting with the person all the time and having to watch the person, having to keep your eye on them and put them in chains. Once you can chain their minds, because sexual intercourse is something that involves the mind. So once you can get a person going that way, you don't have to watch them as close. You have a little more say-so in how you can interact with the person. You got a little more control if that's what you're seeking. And so the white supremacists make it their business to go among the dark-skinned people of the world, engaging in rampart sexual intercourse as a means of strengthening their influence. And they give it labels like we're married, or we're cohabiting, or, and et cetera, et cetera. These are just words. I mean, dating, usually dating means just that, They use sometimes words that don't go directly to what they're really talking about. They'll say, are you dating? Are you all dating? What do you mean dating? Dates, a date is something that grows on a tree, or a date is on something that people call calendars and whatnot. What do you mean date? Where'd that come from? The question is, are you having sexual intercourse with this person? That's right to the point. Are you having sexual intercourse with this person? Not dating. I don't know what that means. That's too broad. Now, of course, there's different types of dates, we have been told. That's why you have to figure out what type of date they're talking about. A dinner date, a movie date. But where did the use of the word date come from? What does that actually mean? I mean, a day is a day, and a day is a date, I guess. And so dating, what does that mean? You have to ask the person who's using the term. What do you mean by dating? Well, I'm asking you for a date. Okay. A date for what? A business date or what? What are you talking about? Oh, yes, it's a business date. Well, this business date is going to include what? Well, we're going to sign some papers. Oh, okay. Now I know what you're talking about. But it might mean we're going to a hotel room and engage in sexual intercourse. That should be clear. Ladies in particular should at some point ask a quote-unquote gentleman that right from the cafe booth. Wait a minute. You're talking about a date. I thought we were on a date sitting in this booth. Now you're talking about another date? Is that other date going to be sitting in this booth and you ordering dinner and paying for it? Or what? What are we talking about here? You're talking about another date like this one? Or you're talking about another date that's different from this one? And what kind of date is that, Bob?
Mm. Confusion with word. I think you say it pretty consistently. Word masters, racist man and racist woman, interracial dating. As we said at the very beginning, I think one of the major tools you can use, make an effort to use the most accurate terms possible when having dialogue, just to cut down on confusion, deception. Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We had some folks that dialed in with questions. I'll give out the number one more time. If you have a question you'd like to ask Mr. Fuller, the number to dial 760-569-7676, and the code is 564943#. If you dial that number, just press *6. If you have a question, if you're on the talk shoe line, it would be *8 if you have a question. Mr. Scotty Reed, founder of the Black Talk Radio Network, did you have a question for Mr. Fuller?
Yes, I do. Thank you for taking my call. Mr. Fuller, is it logical to believe that white supremacy can be ended by nonviolent means?
It's logical to consider that because that is the way that you would want it to be done. See, you would want, yes, you definitely want it to be nonviolent, but in the code book there is, one of the 9 areas of activity is war, counter-war. Now, the white supremacists believe in war. If you're a white supremacist, you definitely believe in war because you believe in mistreating people. That's war. Anytime you mistreat someone, you have declared war. And the major war on this planet has upstaged all other so-called wars, so it's only one war, and that's the war between those who believe in white supremacy and those who don't. And so the greatest warriors on this planet are the white supremacists. Now, the victims of white supremacists are supposed to be engaging in counter-war. So anytime you are resisting white supremacy, either by word or deed, you are engaging in counter war, because it's just one war. Everything else is a battle. The non-white people of this planet going up against the white supremacists have never won a war. We have won some battles, which means we got in a few licks, and then they came back at us, and we succumbed. So they have won the war so far. But we're trying to do away with war of any kind. Well, we have a universe made up of universal man, universal woman, with all the characteristics that are the most constructive in the people that everybody is supposed to be. But there is a description of making counter war against the white supremacists in a physical way. And that's up, like everything in the books that I have written, is addressed to the individual. Now, if you're going to be physical against the white supremacists, you have to be ready to kill and die. kill and die. I didn't say kill or die. I said kill and die. Because you do not surrender. Once you start killing white supremacists, you do not surrender to the white supremacists, or you have defeated your purpose for doing the killing in the first place. Now you put yourself in position of asking for mercy. You don't ask for mercy once you don't give any, and you're not giving mercy when you kill somebody. Just a little while ago, I saw an interview with I very seldom mention people's names, but I'll mention this person's names because, and I don't like to misquote people either. That's very, very, that's a no-no, misquoting someone ever. But I will paraphrase a singer, white singer named Tony Bennett, and I agree with the statement that he made in an interview recently, in a television interview. And in that interview, and I'll paraphrase it because I don't want to mix his words up with something he didn't say, he said the lowest form, the lowest thing that a person can do, the lowest form of activity that a person can engage in is to kill someone. He said that's just about as low as it can get. That's nothing, in other words, he implied that that's never anything to be proud of. And so that's right in line as far as the racism is concerned with violence and counter-violence. Counter-violence means violence against the person who is committing violence. That's not non-violence, that's counter-violence, is when you actually go out and seek, hunt down if necessary, and sometimes it is. But you do that as an individual, according to what I have written. That's the only way it should be done. You don't involve anyone else. You don't tell anyone else. You don't involve anyone else. Because when you start talking about making death, you shouldn't put somebody else up to doing something that you are doing just because you want to do it. Because we should be sending a lesson to the entire world. Anytime you engage in counter-violence, that's violence against the person who is violent. And that is when you willfully and deliberately go looking for the person to kill that person with the intention of killing them, not the intention of talking to them or trying to just beg them or ask them to stop doing what they're doing, but you intend to kill them. Then, according to what I have written, the only way you can do that in the way that it should be done to keep you honest, if you kill that person or persons, after you do so, you kill yourself. Why is this? Because you're letting the whole world know that you have great regard for the thing that we call life and our existence. You had nothing to do with you coming into existence. You just suddenly found yourself here. It's the same way with the person that you killed. They suddenly found themselves in the universe. They were born. They didn't have anything to do with them being born. So when any of us become so arrogant that we think that we can take somebody out of here and just keep walking around breathing and whistling and whatnot like nothing has happened, and sometimes, heaven forbid, even brag about doing it, brag about killing someone, which is one of the easiest things in the world to do. That's not difficult to do at all. And more than anybody, the non-white people, the black people of this planet, should be sending a lesson to the world that killing people is no kind of fun. The white supremacists have made it fun and taught it to everybody else. They make fun of killing people. They have parades about killing people. No one should ever have a parade, or no parade should ever be given to anyone for having killed somebody, even in self-defense. You're not a hero. We got to send that message because nobody else is sending it. You're never a hero when you kill someone, even in self-defense. That's what the code refers to as a tragic necessity when you do it in self-defense. Hello?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yes. And so, yes, but it is necessary sometimes to kill people, but when you do it, you don't involve anybody else, and you make sure that you know what you're doing and that person ought to be dead. You got to have that in mind. But after you do it, you kill yourself because you don't want anybody else's blood to be shed because of you, and you let the whole world know it. People who go around, and I don't care who it is, killing anybody and then hide the fact that they did it. I don't care if they do it by robbing somebody in an alley or sending a drone, so-called, some kind of mysterious airplane to kill somebody. The whole world should know the name of that person who did it. Stand by your work. That's what it's called. Of course, a person should stand by their work regardless of what they do. If you do anything, whether it's constructive or non-constructive, since you did it, the whole world should know that you did it. It shouldn't be any secret, particularly about killing. Ever. When someone kills somebody, the whole world should know who did the killing. So this killing somebody and then running and hiding, absolutely not. The world of the future and the people who are thinking about the future of this planet should disband that altogether. That idea, this notion of killing somebody by stealth. You're going to take someone out of this world and then walking around whistling and whatnot and rolling your eyes and acting like somebody else did it. Some mysterious force did it. That was not you. No, you did it. Stand up and tell the whole world, I did it. And if you did it for incorrect purpose, tell them you did it for that purpose. You always give your reason why you did it. Because the main reason you did it is because you say, this person should be dead. And I determine that the person should be dead. Well, anytime you make that determination deliberately, and you willfully and deliberately hunt the person down and do it, then, since you like death so well, you should kill yourself. That's the law of compensation. You just go around taking people out of the universe that you didn't even bring here and then bragging about it. Now, if you do it in self-defense, that's a different thing. I want to emphasize that, according to the code, according to logic. If you do it in self-defense, you don't kill yourself, but you don't brag about it either. You don't ask for anybody to pin some medal on your chest. Tell them, no, get that thing away from me. This is a tragic necessity. It shouldn't have been done. I shouldn't have had to do it. The person shouldn't have forced me into that kind of position. This is a shameful act. But I had to do it because the person was going to kill me and maybe other people around me who should not have been dead. And so I had to take action against the person. But I'm not proud of it.
In the context of your answer, the reason I asked that question is I've been seeing news articles here lately, but I first read a policy paper put out by a group of politicians, and I'm not going to call their names, even though they openly signed this policy paper where they were calling for ethnic-based weapons like bioweapons that could target a person by their ethnicity. And I'm just wondering if we're getting close to the end game here. I mean, they are openly talking about targeting people by their ethnicity. And and they're not hiding. They are not, saying this through spokespersons. They're signing their names to these documents, and everybody should know who they are. And I'm just concerned that we're getting close to the end game if they ever develop such weapons.
Oh, well, it's the end game for somebody every minute and whatnot. So the white supremacists are always killing people, so you just take that for granted. That's what they do. if you're talking about the white supremacists doing this, that's what they do.
Yes,
they love death making. Death making is a part of their entire being. I mean, you are not really a bona fide white supremacist if you don't believe in doing harm to people, and one major way of doing harm to people is just to kill people by the millions and brag about it. I mean, they do that right to your face. They don't hide that. They love it. And they say everybody should love it. They say everybody should love killing. You turn on the television set at 3 o'clock in the morning, turn the sound completely off, and flip channels, and you see people jumping over things and firing weapons of all kinds of destruction. I mean, cars turning over. I mean, all kinds of ways of causing people to die. And print newspapers and write what they call novels, whodunits, detective novels, mystery novels, the dagger on the bed, the body in the basement, the headless corpse. And they worship that type of stuff. And they teach it to people all over the world, challenging people to duels. Meet me in the middle of the desert and let's slug it out. And that's supposed to be under the banner of what? F-U-N, fun. That's what they call it. This is fun. Napalm in the morning is fun. Slaughtering people, burning people alive. Oh, that's great. That's a wonderful feeling. That's the white supremacist ideology. And they keep it alive. And things start quietening down and whatnot. It's too quiet here. Let's get some bodies stacked up. Let's go into the village and slaughter somebody and feel good about ourselves. We love it. And if they don't do it, we'll teach them to do it. And then come back later and see how good they are at what we taught them. We need to get off of that nonsense. That's pure nonsense. Whatever created this universe, I think, would have some idea that when we engage in that kind of nonsense, that is exactly what it is, nonsense. It's not logical. People are given arms and legs and eyes, which is some pretty first-class equipment. Look at your fingers, your hands, your eye. I have eyes. I don't even know how that works. But these are gifts. And to go around bragging about destroying those gifts in someone else and then laughing about it, bragging about it, go somewhere in a factory and make up medals where you put things on people's chests and have them strutting down a street, block off the streets for everybody to praise me for doing what? Death making? Death making? We got to get out of that mentality. It's rooted in our mentality. Rooted in our mentality by whom? In recent history, the white supremacists. We got to let them know this is not fun. And getting back to the main theme of under the war section of the compensatory code, it's called maximum emergency compensatory action. You sometimes call maximum emergency compensatory justice. It's really not justice, because if it doesn't result in justice, then it's not justice, but it is an action. It's an action designed with the intention of producing justice. But if you do it yourself, because everything comes down to doing it yourself. If you kill somebody, if I kill somebody, I'm supposed to be out of here as soon as I finish that mission by my own hand. Because if I can use that hand that was given me to kill someone else willfully and deliberately, hunt them down and kill them, then I'm not going to let somebody else take the blame for it, because the white supremacists love to have somebody else take the blame. They do that themselves, okay? They'll start a whole so-called war, which is just an extension. It's not really a war. It's just another one of their battles. and then claim that the other person did it. You started it, and I reacted to you starting it. No, they put the person in position where the person was trying to defend themselves, most likely, or thinking that they should, or preparing to do so. And they show it sometimes in moving pictures. I'm going to walk out of the saloon. Now, if you don't have a gun, I'm going to slide one down the bar and give it to you. And I'm going outside and stay 3 minutes. When I come back in, you better be having gun smoke all over this saloon, because I'm certain to have it for you. And you teach people this at an early age, so that on Jesus' birthday, Christmas, little boys want some type of firearm. Play guns, they call them. I used to want one. A little toy train is fine. A little puzzle, well, that's not at the top of the list. You got to have, use your mind when you have a little puzzle to work. Put that over there in the corner and get to that later. But a cap pistol? BB gun? Run right out of the house and start running up and down the block. Pow, pow, pow. Fall down. You're dead. Is that anything to teach people who call themselves civilized? I don't think so. But the white supremacists love it. And all over the world, the non-white world should say, you shouldn't love it, and neither should we. We should take making death serious and not anything ever to make fun of or to run out in the streets waving flags and all like that because somebody's dead. And call yourself civilized.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Thank you.
Always good to hear from Mr. Reed, Black Talk Radio Network. Don't be waiting until the last minute. Just get your hand up if you have a question. One of the things I did want to ask, just thank you again, Mr. Reed, for the question. I think for many victims of white supremacy, we do not understand that if racist man and racist woman, the most powerful racists, wanted to kill all the black people on the planet, they could do that right now. They could do that right now, and there's nobody who could stop them if the most powerful racists decided that's what they wanted to do, short of the creator, whatever is responsible for putting us here. And I think that's a real important point to have. Is that accurate to your understanding, Mr. Fuller?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, sometimes people say that the racists are plotting on what they call, quote, unquote, genocide. They don't have to plot. The racists, the white supremacists of this planet, the white people who believe in mistreating people based on color, could announce that they could announce it every day for a year on the television, through the internet, Twittering, whatever, and just make an announcement. Well, we're tired of the black people being on this planet. They're in the way. We don't have any use for them. We don't need any more slaves on the plantation anymore. We got machines to do that work. We're getting ready to colonize space and all like that. They're just in the way. We don't have any use for them at all. We don't even need them for comedians anymore. No more minstrel shows. They can announce that. So what we're going to do, you black people out there who can hear my voice on the radio, and I know you got your radios on and whatnot, and your Twitters on and whatnot, your little cell phones that I gave you. I am going to kill every last one of you. We white people who believe in white supremacy. And we're going to give you a running chance. We're not going to start immediately. We're going to give you at least 2 years to find a place to hide. You can go anywhere you want to. You can buy any kind of equipment to get you there. And we'll sell it to you cheap or give it to you. Turn you loose like rabbits. Let you run anywhere you want to go. And 2 years from today, we white people of this planet who believe in white supremacy are going to hunt you down and kill every last one of you and make a sport of it. So with that announcement, you can start making your plans about where you're going to hide and how you're going to survive and how much sardines you can stock up, how you're going to get water and whatnot. But we're not going to bother you for 2 years. We're going to give you 2 years to make a plan with your feeble minds about where you're going on this planet that you can get away from me, because we're going to use every means after 2 years to come after you. Now, let's just say hypothetically that the white supremacists did that. Just whom do you think could protect us and keep that from happening other than whatever created us? I can see black people now loading up the cars and vans and whatnot when the date came close, because a lot of us would wait till the last minute. And then trying to take off to the hills, and the white supremacists are sitting up in the hills waiting on us when we get there. They know where the hills are. Is there any hill that we know about that they don't already know? So this thing about white people are planning on killing all the black people on this planet, if they were planning on doing that, we'd have been gone. Let's tell the truth. We can't be that dumb. If they were planning on killing us, they wouldn't have to make excuses. Who would they be making excuses to? They'd just simply say, we're going to kill you. There's nothing to you. You're no good. You're in the way. You're not going to draw any more of my welfare. And I don't have any more jobs for you. And I don't want you walking up and down my streets. So I'm going to kill you all. So find a place to hide. I mean, and I'll make a sport out of it, because I like, I give the animals that much chance. I like to go hunting. So you can take you and your families and your little crying babies and try to take to the hills, and I'm going to hunt you down, and I'm going to kill you all. And I'm going to have the whole planet to myself. How about that? And if you're smart enough to get away from me, more power to you. It is no doubt in my mind, if they told us that tonight, in my mind, telling myself the truth, my belief would be that I could expect myself to be dead when they got ready to make me dead. And they wouldn't have to hide it from me, what their plans are. They can find me, because I wouldn't even know where to go. Maybe there are some black people who got an idea, they center of the earth maybe, or something like that nobody knows anything about, but I doubt it. Somewhere at the bottom of the ocean, and up under the ocean, and through the ocean, on the bottom, there might be some black person that knows that, but I doubt it. Because if they know it, the white supremacists know it. I could be incorrect about that, but I don't think so. Now, why am I saying all this? So that black people to get it out of their heads that the white supremacists want to kill all the black people on this planet. They don't. What they do want to do is just kill off enough of us to keep the rest of us scared. That's all. And they do that, and will continue to do that as long as white supremacy exists, because that's a part of their package. It's called racial population tailoring. They tailor the population. They say, well, we'll kill a few million in Nigeria this year. And then next year we'll starve to death a few that are in Mali. And then, depending on how I feel, I might knock off a couple of million in the Sudan, or have them kill each other, give them guns, have them running around shooting and killing. They have their different tribes, and they have their differences. They have their families. Black people in the northwestern hemisphere are always killing each other. They look forward to that more than they look forward to anything. And so the population is pretty well kept in check. And if I want to increase it, I'll increase it. But if I want to kill them all, they'll just be dead. But I'm not going to do that. How am I going to be a white supremacist? Now let's look at the logic without any black people to be supreme over. We need to ask ourselves that question. How is a white supremacist going to be a white supremacist if they don't have any people classified as non-white to be supreme over? The white supremacists understand that formula. That's why they haven't done it. You can't go fox hunting if you don't have any foxes. Very simple.
Context of white supremacy. I completely agree. I think that's flawless logic. White people, they are the racist man and racist woman, not interested in killing off all the black people. I think they would, what are they going to do? They dedicated their existence to stomping on black people. Pam, co-author of the Interracial Con Game, she dialed in with a question. Pam, did you have a question for Mr. Fuller?
Yes. Good evening, Gus. Good evening, Mr. Fuller. I had a question for you. I know what you said about there only being one race, and I agree with that. What's the best way to describe a relationship between a black person and a white person? I had been describing it as interracial, but I was wanting to hear your take on whether interracial is appropriate, or is there a better term to describe it?
No, you just describe it just like you just said it. A white person with a non-white person. A white person with a black person. With, use the word with or against, and or with against, and interacting. That's all. And then describe what the interaction is. I mean, if they're sitting across the table from each other having coffee, then you just say that they're sitting across the table from each other having coffee. You don't call it interracial, coffee drinking. You just say there's a black person and a white person having coffee. Black person is drinking coffee. The white person is drinking coffee at the same table. Just describe what you're looking at. But it's not interracial. It's not interracial coffee drinking.
Okay. I'm wondering how I could translate that into a title. Maybe it can't be.
No, well, you just say they're interacting with each other, and then you describe how they're interacting. They're drinking coffee and they're talking to each other, if they are talking. If they're not talking, well, they're not talking. Just describe the action. That's all. Because interracial would not be the correct term. It's not interracial coffee drinking. You know, the coffee has nothing to do with the color of the people. I mean, it's just coffee. One person putting the cup to his or her mouth, and the other person, and they could be doing that standing on a bus stop. I mean, is that interracial? That's why the word segregation and racial integration makes no sense. How do I know when I'm an integrated black person? When I'm standing, they say, well, you're integrated when you are close to white people. Well, how close? 5 inches? 12 miles? What are you talking about? Well, standing next to the white person, now you are integrated. Oh, I'm integrated because I'm standing next to the white person. Well, yeah, you can say that. Well, if you look at it that way, a black person was integrated with a white person in the slave mansion. If you worked in the mansion, I mean, you are now integrated because you're no longer working in the fields, but you're going up to the big house. You're still a slave, but you are sitting at the table, say, if you're bold enough to do that, with the master of the house. The master of the house say, sit down, mammy. Pull up a chair and sit down. I'm going to let you sit at the sit at the table today because it's a holiday. Now, is that integration? I don't think so, or maybe it is. That's why I say the term makes no sense. if they say being nearer, being closer to a white person than you were yesterday or 2 years ago. Now, what do you mean by close? How close is close? No, the term is racial subjugation, which is what racism is anyway. You're subject to the person. So it has nothing to do with how close you're standing to the person, or whether you are drinking coffee and 3 feet away the other person is drinking coffee too, and you're black and the other person is white, and you're both drinking coffee. Now, is that interracial coffee drinking? No, that's just coffee drinking. A black person drinking coffee and a white person drinking coffee under the system of white supremacy, period. But the white supremacists invented those terms, interracial, racial segregation, racial integration, without describing in detail exactly what that means. And this is why even today in the schools, they'll say, well, this school, I guess, is an integrated school. But at the same time, like in this morning's Washington Post newspaper here in Washington, D.C., it said that in most places, black students are suspended from school more than white students in a so-called integrated school. So what does that mean? If you're going to use the word, if it's integrated, I mean, you know, I don't understand the term, never have. And I don't understand the term segregated. Black, if segregated means separate from, then black people have never been separate from white people since the beginning of white supremacy. Separate, well, how separate is separate? Like I said at the beginning of this particular segment, does separate mean you're 4 feet away, 8 feet away, 12 miles away? How separate is separate? Just looking at that word. If you say segregation is the same as separation, how separate is separate? No. The term that is used in the textbook for victims is subjugated. That's a thing that's altogether different. Meaning you are subject to, meaning this person has power over you, and you have no power over them. That's subjugation. Racism is subjugation. There's no such thing as racial integration and racial segregation. If by segregation you mean people are separate, because then you have to get into how separate is separate. Everybody is separate unless you are welded together at birth, like what they call so-called Siamese twins, which is maybe a racist term. I mean, where your arm or your leg or your hip or your head is joined together with another person's head. Now you're not separate, but everybody is separate who's normal, under normal conditions. Even twins come into the world. They're separate, and they're not the same, not even twins. People who are listening to this program probably know some twins, and they are not the same. Why? Because there's 2 of them. So-called born at the same time, which there's a question about that too, because technically twins are not born at the same time, even if it's just a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a second. It's not the same time. And you say they look exactly alike. No, they don't. They just appear to look exactly alike. Why? Because it's 2. Might be triplets, quadruplets. They're not the same. They weren't born at the same time, and most likely they won't die at the same time either, and that tells you something, particularly, because one might die 5 years before the other, or 2 days. If they are absolutely the same, they would take that last breath at the same time. So there's something different between the 2. And it's supposed to be that way. No two people in the universe are supposed to be the same. That's why each person shouldn't ever want to be someone else, according to the code. Each individual person. Always be yourself, because you are yourself. You were sent here at a certain time, at a certain place, put in a certain position, and given a mission for being here, whether you know what it is or not. But it's part, logically speaking, of our duties to find out what that mission is. I say if you're black and you're born in the system of white supremacy, your mission is to replace white supremacy with something better. That's your reason for being here. That's why you were born under the system of white supremacy. According to what? According to logic. You could have been born 12 million years from now, in which case you would have another mission. How do you know what your mission is? Because it's put right in front of you, and you can't escape it. That's the logical way of looking at it. If that mission is in the form of solving a problem, that problem will be right in front of you. And how do you know that that's the problem you're supposed to be working on? Because every time you move, the problem moves. You can't get away from the problem. So at some point, you have to face the problem. That's the logic. And how did you come to that conclusion? Because if you weren't supposed to be helping to solve that problem, you wouldn't have the problem in the first place. Because whatever created you would not have given you that problem. Because everything that you have is a gift. When you're born in this universe, when I am born in this universe, all of that is a gift. If I don't spend but 5 minutes here, or 5 seconds, that's more than I had. Because I didn't do anything to get here. A white person once told me, Fuller, you talk like a person who expects someone to give you something. Well, nobody never gave me anything. And I said, well, it's one thing I do know for certain. That statement that you just made is false. You just made a false statement. And then I told him why. I said, I'm looking at you. And you wouldn't be here if nobody ever gave you anything. Nobody ever did anything for you. Because that's what you just said. I said, I wouldn't be looking at you if that was so. I said, generally speaking, if you, for 9 months, you had a free ride and you didn't even know it. That's what I mean by using logic. When people say things, you think about the logic of what they're saying. And the gentleman had to agree. I asked him, was he a 9-month baby? I mean, even if he was a 6-month baby, that's more than he had. And he had a free ride. Someone else was carrying him in the rain. And he didn't feel anything. No pain. Wasn't punching a clock. So if you only spend 9 months in the womb and you come here dead, that's 9 months that you didn't have. And you didn't even know it. So everything is a gift. We're supposed to use these gifts, all of it, to solve problems, if we have problems. And we do have problems, because whatever put us here gave us problems to solve. It must be something instinctive in people who are sitting on the subway and whatnot, working crossword puzzles, or trying to figure out anything like babies do. Because we're put here to figure out things. Why? Because there's plenty to figure out. That's the logic. I hope I didn't deviate from your question.
No, you didn't, and it was interesting. Thank you very much for answering it.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's see. I'm checking to see if there are other folks who have questions that they would like to ask. If you are on the free HD line, it's *6 if you have a question. I know I did want to ask, you have a quote, this is in the code book, where you say that most white people hate black people. The reason that most white people hate black people is because whites are not black people. If you know this about white people, you need know little else. If you do not know this about white people, virtually all else that you know about them will only confuse you. How did you get to a point where, you felt like that would be an accurate statement about racist man and racist woman, and what you say in the statement about most white people?
Yes, I made that statement as a thought, primarily. Not anything to act on, but to think about. See, that was one of those statements that were designed because the subtitle of the textbook for victims of racism is a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of white supremacy. And so that comes under the thought part. If you notice, that's not directive, but that is something to think about. Now, that statement may not be true, and I fully realize that, even as I wrote it. But it is something to think about, because there's got to be a reason why the white people who believe in white supremacy believe in white supremacy, mistreating people based on color. There's got to be a reason. And so different people have explored those reasons. Lots of people have written books and whatnot and had seminars on it and whatnot, and those people should be listened to. And then last but not least, you should listen to yourself, because that's something you should ask yourself. Why is it that the white people who believe in racism believe in racism? Why do they act the way that they do, in essence? Is it anything that they can help? Can they help it? These questions should be answered eventually. What motivates them to do the things that they do, to say the things that they say, to treat people the way that they treat people? When they are kind to people, why is it that they are kind? When they are not kind to people, why is it they are not kind? Does it have anything to do with color? Or are people just imagining that this is the case? Is Neely Fuller imagining that white people, or some white people, hate black people? Is he making that up? And if they do hate black people, based on what? And if they don't, why is it that they don't? Why? That's one of the key questions that you ask about anything in the universe, because all questions have answers. And the most prominent answer to most questions is, I don't know. Now, when I ask myself what is the essence of the motivation of those white people who chose to be white supremacists, in other words, the first white person who thought it up and decided that they were going to devote their entire being to that, and got millions of other white people down through the ages to follow suit. If you ask Neely Fuller why they do this, I always give the best answer that I can give. I don't know. But I do know one thing based on logic, that they don't have to do it. You don't have to hate people based on color. You don't have to. Nobody has to do that. And if you think you have to do it, I don't know why that is. I don't know. I don't know why it's necessary for a person to be a racist. I wouldn't know why it would be necessary to look at a person who is tall or short, or what you call tall or short, quote unquote, because that's all relative, and decide that I can mistreat that person based on that. If I thought that way, I wouldn't really know why I thought that way. Someone would have to tell me if I thought that way, but I don't think that way. Somebody even wrote a song a little while ago. Short people got nobody to love, or something like that. Don't want no short people around here. Got platform shoes on their nasty little feet, or something like that. That was a joking type song, poking fun at people who are short. But then how short is short? And should a short person be laughed at or poked fun at because they're short? According to logic, no one should be poked fun at because of the way that they look. Ever. Because they look the way that they look. And that's the business of whatever created them to look that way. So you better leave that alone. The white supremacists need to know that.
Based on your time here, the evidence that you've seen, that statement that most white people hate black people, and then that the reason most white people hate black people is because whites are not black people, do you think that's an accurate statement according to what you've seen?
Could be. See, I threw it out there as a thought question, like a thought proposition. That's what I'm saying. See, that might not be a true statement, but I believe it could be, since no one hardly is explaining in a way that everybody agrees. Lots of people have theories, concepts, and whatnot, but I think it's greatly debatable. Why do people who are classified as white, huge numbers of them, want to do harm to people who they classify as non-white? There's got to be a reason. There might be one reason, might be two, might be a combination of reasons. But the best people to ask would be the white people who are doing it, even though they might lie, and you could expect that too. I heard one white person say, well, of course, another white person asked that question, say, why do you always want to beat up on Negroes, which is what black people were called at that time in the place where I was at the time. And I heard this conversation. And the other white person answered the question, because if you don't keep them in check, they'll jump all, they'll walk all over you. That was his reason. But I was thinking when I heard that, I don't believe that, and I don't believe that he believes that. I heard him say it, but I don't believe that he believes that. Because that's usually not the case, you know, as far as I could see. I don't believe that he believes that, but he said that was the reason. If you don't jump them first, they're definitely going to get all over you. So you have to do that. You have to get the best of them, or they will come after you. That's how I interpreted what he said. And the white person who asked him that question, he didn't say anything, but he looked a little puzzled, I guess. That's how I read it, about that answer. So I simply say, I don't really know. But it's a hypothetical. It could be because white people are not black. That's why they hate black people, because they're not black themselves. Could be. And then on the other hand, may not be that at all. May be something else. But that should be talked about because it's got to be a reason. And what's the procedure for finding out the reason? Talk to the white people who say that they hate black people and get them to say. And then through the process of elimination, try to ascertain from that, because many of them will tell a lie. Try to ascertain from that what the truth really is. Because if you keep asking enough questions, the nature of the truth is that it gravitates toward the person who is asking the questions, who is seeking truth. That's the nature of, I think, that's just a theory. In the universe, if you're asking questions, the answers to the questions start having a tendency to gravitate toward the person who is asking the question. That's just some type of force, I think, that's in the universe. I think that's why inventors come up with solutions to problems. Because, first of all, an inventor asks questions. You couldn't invent something without asking questions. How do you do this? If I want to get across the river, what's the best way to get across the river? Without knowing any idea, having any idea of how to get across that river. Could I make something that will help me to get across the river? You're asking yourself questions. And if you keep doing that and keep doing that, history has proven that people who do that, people who are constantly asking questions, are usually the people who come up with answers. Either somebody gives them the answer who already knows, or if they're persistent in asking that question over and over and over and over again, sometimes the answer comes to them by whatever means it does. In the middle of the night, some people say, that the question I've been asking all these years came to me at 3 o'clock in the morning when I was half asleep. And suddenly it hit me, they'll say. They use the word hit sometimes. But the answer came to me. Sometimes they'll even say, it jumped right out at me. It was there all the time, right in front of me, but I couldn't figure it out. But it came to me. Came to me in a dream. Or it came to me one day when I was just at the pinball machine. Or driving a car. The answer came to me. There are messages that are floating around out there all the time. It's a matter of pulling them in. And how do you pull them in? By asking yourself questions. Who am I? What am I doing here? What should I be doing with my time? These are questions. You keep asking those questions of yourself, you start getting answers. The evidence down through history has shown this. There's an old blues song, a line from that blues song. I think it's by Memphis Slim, a blues pianist back in the 1940s and 50s. And I'm not quoting the line directly, so I'm paraphrasing, but it went something like this. As you go through life, you can't help knowing. You can always get help, but only the way you're going. So if you're trying to do something and you keep thinking about doing whatever it is you're trying to do or think you ought to be doing, and you just keep thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it, you'll start heading in the direction of doing what you're thinking about. Because people, before they act, for the most part, they usually keep thinking about something if they're self-motivated. And you'll start getting help from other people in doing what you are thinking about. Because somewhere out there, there's someone who will get on that wavelength with you. And you'll find that you'll get help in going in that direction. If you keep thinking about doing that one thing over and over and over again, you're persistent. You don't know exactly what to do, but you got an idea that you want to do it. Somehow you'll find a way to do it because you keep thinking about it all the time, and you're pulling answers to you. The answers may come through other people, usually does, or it just comes to you, as they say, cold. As you go through life, you can't help knowing. You can always get help, but only the way you're going. If a person doesn't know anything about dealing drugs, and they keep asking around, looking, learning, wouldn't know one drug from another, little by little, either in a long time or a short time, they will be dealing drugs because they are interested in finding a way to deal drugs. You'll get help in doing that. By the same token, person wants to be an electrical engineer, keeps thinking about it, doesn't know one wire from another, doesn't know anything, hardly knows even what an electrical engineer does, but keeps thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it and asking around. Next thing you know, they'll get help in going in that direction. 8 years later, that person is an electrical engineer. But they got help in going the way that they were already going. Go through life, can't help knowing. Can always get help, but only the way you're going. I think that's worth thinking about. Statement might not even be true, but I think it could be. At least it's something to think about, because everything starts with thinking.
It provoked, just hearing that, it did make me think if that is accurate, if, posing the question, the force of the universe will draw that answer to you. It just made me think perhaps there haven't been enough black people thinking, how do we permanently solve the problem of white supremacy racism? Because if that were true, the universe would be pulling that solution, and that hasn't seemed to have happened yet. Do you think thus far is not enough of us thinking about that question? How do we permanently resolve this issue, racism, white supremacy?
Absolutely. You can just walk down the street and ask the average black person, what are you thinking about right now? Most likely it won't be that.
Zappers.
And that's why it doesn't happen. See, things start happening when people start thinking about it happening in large numbers. That's when things start happening. I mean, it doesn't take a long time. Sometimes people got this idea about long time, that term, long time. You just do it when you think about it. You can start doing, like getting up out of a chair. You can sit there forever until you fall over dead, or you can say, I think I'll get up out of this chair and walk across the room. And you do it. It didn't take a long time, even though you've been sitting there a long time. It didn't take a long time once you thought about, I think I'll move. I think I'll move to the other side of the room. So you get up and move to the other side of the room, even though you've been sitting in that chair 5 days without moving. That's the law of physics. There's just some things you just do. You think about doing it, and then you do it. But if you're not thinking about doing it, you'll do what you're thinking about doing. So each person in the universe should ask themselves, what should I be doing with the little time that I have on this planet? And that's an excellent question for every person to ask him or herself all the time. Where am I going? And what am I going to do when I get there? And is it going to have a constructive result or a non-constructive result? And when you start thinking in that vein, now you start making traction. for sure, particularly when you ask that last question. This thing that I'm fixing to do, is it going to be constructive or non-constructive? I'm fixing to pick up a pistol and put it in my waistband, and I'm going out in the streets. Now, is that going to produce a constructive result or a non-constructive result? You can ask yourself that, if that's what you're doing. Well, it might be constructive because somebody might jump me and I'll protect myself. Well, could be. But at least it's a question you need to ask before you pick it up. Put that clip in it and put it in your waistband and go walking down the street. Because not in all cases, but in far too many cases, a person who's carrying a gun is very likely at some point to be tempted to use it for one purpose or another. And most guns are made for the purpose of killing people. Pistols, particularly. That's what they're made for. One person killing another person. And if you're carrying one, at some point, you might go for years just carrying it. But at some point, you might be tempted to use it because you got it. Either to defend yourself, or you might see a quote, unquote, opportunity to take advantage of someone, and you remember, I got a firearm. I can cause death, instant death to someone. I don't have to argue with them. I don't have to ask them no questions. I can kill them right now. That guy across the aisle on that bus who's mouthing off at me, I can kill him. He doesn't know that, but I know it. I can kill him. I think I will. Somewhere out there it's happening right now. That's very unfortunate, very tragic. But it starts with a person making a decision. You can always get help, but only the way you're going.
Wow. Again, Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., if you need the word guide or the code book, the address again is tiny.cc/Fuller, and Fuller is in all caps. So it's tiny.cc/Fuller in all caps. I wanted to make sure I got in. I thought this was important before we wrap up. You have a term, this is in your word guide as well. Folks, get your word guide. You have a term, intelligent fear, given that you talked about the terroristic nature of white people. And the term intelligent fear, you write, use this term to apply to the fear that a non-white person has of a white supremacist, racist, while that non-white person is speaking and or acting to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. Intelligent fear is a form of cautious and calculated courage. How does acknowledging our fear of racist man and racist woman allow us to begin to get some courage to dealing with them?
Because fear serves a purpose. That's why it exists. But if you have an intelligent fear, and a person should have intelligent fear. Intelligent, if you put the word intelligence in front of it, means you're not going to do something that you have second thoughts about, as they call it, quote unquote, later on. See, in other words, because you're afraid. Intelligent fear, a person shows that when they say, before, usually there are a lot of fires in this building. I'll give an illustration. So intelligent fear tells you since they do have a lot of fires in this building, this is a wooden structure and whatnot, and they do have a lot of chemicals here, and a fire is imminent almost all the time. So I fear fire. I fear getting burned up in this place. So I'm going to make sure that the latches work on that fire exit door, and that there's some firefighting equipment also here at hand. And some equipment, for handling smoke inhalation and all like that. That's intelligent fear. In other words, you're preparing for something that you are really afraid might happen. And it's the same way in dealing with the white supremacists. Say, I fear these people, but I'm going to try to use intelligence in dealing with what I fear. I'm not going to say I'm not afraid. I'm definitely afraid. Of course, they can hurt you and will. So whatever preparations I make in interacting with them, I'm going to try to use as much intelligence as I possibly can, meaning you kind of figure out what you're going to do when certain things happen. And that's what my books are about, using intelligent fear, or trying to anyway. Trying to say what's the best thing to do and the best thing to say in any given situation under the system of white supremacy.
Context of white supremacy. Again, Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Thank you a ton for sharing a bit of your time and insight with us this evening. Zapsters. Explain that one again. Again, folks out there, if you're listening in, please get your word guide, get your code book. You can put in the address and print out the order form. The address is tiny.cc/Fuller and put Fuller in all caps. Tiny.cc/Fuller in all caps. Again, just a huge thank you from myself and all of the listeners. It's always an incredible honor to have you on the program. Really appreciate the opportunity to get some thoughts and insight on how to deal with this problem. Anything that you want to get in before we wrap up, Mr. Fuller?
I think that's it. We've talked quite a bit, and the questions were excellent. All questions always are. There's no such thing as a silly question, because all questions have answers, like I've said. And so we all should be in the mode of finding answers to questions. Answers to what questions? To whatever questions we have that are about a problem we're trying to solve. And like I said in the textbook, you can't solve any major problem. And I might be in error about this, but you can't solve any major problem among the people of this universe without first solving the problem of racism in the form of white supremacy. Why? Because the evidence shows that that's the cause of all of the major problems. If you can get people to stop practicing racism, now you have the opportunity to try to place that system of racism, because it is an entire system that covers all areas of activity 24/7. If you can solve that problem, it makes all other problems, problems of economics, problems of sex, problems of religion, problems of labor, it makes it easier to solve all other problems that have plagued people of this planet. But you can, if you miss solving the problem of racism, you're not going to be able to solve any of these other problems. That's why I harp on it about racism. It's not about just saying disparaging things about white people or white people who practice white supremacy. It's not about that. It's about we need a better system on the planet. But we can't solve any of the problems that we think we are trying to solve. Females not having a decent male and whatnot, and males complaining about the females not being serious about serious things, and all this back and forth. Whether it's about sex or whether it's about religion or whether it's about tribalism and whatnot, you can't solve any of those problems without having a deal, directly and indirectly, with the racists who continue and insist on making people embellish their problems, making their problems bigger. They're not about problem solving among people. They'll solve problems in a scientific field. They are the world's experts in handling things. They're also the world's experts in handling people. But they don't handle people in the correct way, nor do they handle the things that they use to handle people with in the correct way. So it throws everybody in disarray who is subject to them and their influence. And so the world is not the type of world that it ought to be. But if we can get rid of racism, then we can now be in position to start thinking clearly about solving the other problems that people should be solving. And it should be joyous. Problem solving should be not a chore, but it should be something that you embrace. We should get in that mode of thinking.
Not about Zapsters. Replace white supremacy with justice. That's what we need to be thinking about. Thoroughly enjoyed it, Mr. Fuller. Thank you again, and we will definitely speak soon. Take good care of yourself, sir.
Yes, sir, and you do the same, and everybody out there who is listening and whatnot, and thank you for inviting me again. Good night.
Our pleasure. Have a good evening, Mr. Fuller.
Sure.
Context of white supremacy, Neely Fuller Jr., his 18th visit to the context of white supremacy. Word guide, code book. The address is tiny.cc/Fuller. Tiny.cc/Fuller. And Fuller is in all caps. Fuller in all caps. Print the form out. Send that off. Excellent study guides if you are serious about studying racism, white supremacy. You can catch Mr. Fuller. He does the Talktainment Radio. You can catch him on Wednesday mornings. They're archived as well. You can listen live, ask questions. If you missed the archive, that's too early for you. It's available to download. Always good to hear from Neely Fuller Jr. We will do a quick commercial and be right back. I will explain Zapsters. I think some people came in late and they have no idea what I'm talking about. I'll explain it once we get back from the commercial, and we'll do our news segment, context of white supremacy.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism, and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas, to Europe, to Australia, to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past. It is our current reality. Be informed. Be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open-source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Do you need a one-stop shop for all of your multimedia needs? Triumphant Multimedia is a skilled team of professionals with a passion for great marketing and chic design. Our specialties include consulting, brand development, copywriting, and creative graphic design that's second to none. We also offer photography, photo retouching, videography, and video editing. At Triumphant Multimedia, our goal is to provide highly effective creative solutions built to suit any individual need or budget. Give us a call at 678-732-8067 or check us out online at trimultimedia.com.
Hi everybody, welcome. This is Justice with the Cows Radio program. If you want to learn about, understand, and counter racism, white supremacy, be sure not to miss a Cows episode. We keep them jammed packed with constructive information to sharpen your use of words to help eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy, ASAP. Also, for more information on racism, white supremacy, and to invest in my counter-racist efforts, please visit my blog, justdojustice.blogspot.com.
You're just saying just buckets and buckets of words.
Yo, this is Wade, one half of the Black Twins, and I want y'all to check something out. Our latest project, Double Consciousness, the Mixed Message. This will be dropping October 2nd, 2011, featuring various audio from Umar Abdullah Johnson and Dr. Kambom, just to name a few. You can download this at www.gagmusicroom.bandcamp.com and at stlouismixtapes.com. That's STLmixtapes.com. Replace white supremacy with justice now.
This mixtape is only for victims of racism and white supremacy.
Context of white supremacy. Number one, Zapsters. This is why you should be on time tuning into the program. I know a lot of victims, white people, they give you a tough time on the plantation. It's difficult to get in on time, but Mr. Fuller was saying at the beginning of the program that white people will take junk, old hubcaps, and they will turn them into hats and give them a cool name and do a lot of hype around it and get black people to buy it. They'll code it so that this will be something that is specific for black people. And he said that we'll call them Zapsters. And he gave, further detail about that. But that's the Zapsters reference. And I was thinking, if you need, I said this to someone in the chat room, if you need an example, Air Jordans, right? They been showing the reports. Actually, man, I was doing my research, and the Air Jordans, I don't know if everybody has been keeping up, but they have been showing all these reports in the news about black people rioting, non-white people rioting for shoes, the new Jordans that just came out. And, man, the explicit racists, they've been just having a ball with this incident. This is on Irate Irishman. Irate Irishman, and his blog is subtitled, "Just When You Think Niggers Can't Sink Any Lower, They Manage to Drain Just a Little More from the Cesspool." Their post on the rioting, this is titled, "Groyd Gutted During Chimp-Out Over Sneakers in London." Police and paramedics tried in vain to stuff the guts back in a teen aper, stabbed to death amid crowds of Boxing Day sales shoppers yesterday. The 18-year-old, named locally today as Seydou Dirasuba, is said to have been killed after a fight chimp-out erupted between rival gangs over which sneakers to jack from a sportswear shop in London's jam-packed Oxford Street. Cops recovered several weapons, including a flick knife, from the scene. 11 suspects were held. One witness told how a feral gang of marauding niggers shoved parents and children aside as they chased down the terrified coon before gutting him in broad daylight. Frightened families took refuge in shops as he collapsed in a pool of blood. And the witness, a woman shopping with her husband and baby daughter, said, "I hope that one day I will forget his eyes and the effing street apes who were chasing him." The savagery erupted at lunchtime as tens of thousands of Boxing Day bargain hunters thronged London's Oxford Street. There were claims that two rival gangs from South London had argued over which designer trainers they aimed to jack from a branch of Foot Locker. The murder follows violent chimpouts in the U.S. between welfare niggers battling to buy pairs of Nike's new Air Jordan basketball-style trainers, though the limited edition shoes are not thought to be available here yet. Another Nog, aged 21, was stabbed in the thigh by three wild niggers nearly 5 hours after the Foot Locker murder outside the nearby Nike Town store. A pile of blood-soaked clothes were left on the ground there, along with what looked like a pair of brand-new Nike Air trainers. Police who arrested two suspects could not make a firm link between the two stabbings, but they said there are similar circumstances. Niggers, possibly from the South London area. The gangs in the Foot Locker incident clashed outside the shop before a fight broke out inside. The 18-year-old's name, by pals under his street name Seydou Nuts, made a run for it, chased by at least 7 young bloodthirsty jigs. The woman witness, a 32-year-old admin assistant, too scared to be named, said, "I was near Foot Locker when all hell broke loose. Some effing nigger pushed me from behind and darted past. I swung around and could see 7 wild niggers chasing this teen aper. I will remember the faces of these animals all my life, though some were part covered by hoods. They were desperate to get hold of him and were screaming and shouting, pushing people out of their way. One leapt up as he ran to try to almost jump through the crowd. The lad being chased sprinted into Foot Locker. He looked absolutely terrified. His face was etched with desperation to escape. While he was in the shop, something obviously spooked him as he came out again. Maybe he couldn't pass the crowds. As he came out, I knew they were going to catch him. One of the niggers going after him looked so aggressive and angry. All they wanted to do was get him. We hid inside Boots, and when we went out there was this crowd around him. A stallholder selling fruit and very nearby said the coon was stabbed straight into his stomach. The blade was very long. It was a big knife. Everyone was so shocked. Long report. They have video to go with this. Explicit white people. He looks like he's affiliated with the chimp out people. White people invest a lot of time and energy. This goes back, I think, to what Mr. Fuller said. This is what white people do in their spare time. Dr. Cambon, I spoke with him today, and he played me a voice message where an explicit racist called his home at like 1 in the morning just to call him a nigger on his voicemail, 1 in the morning. There's tons of examples. If white people did not have us around to practice white supremacy, they would lose their mind, I think. They would lose their entire purpose for existence. I could be wrong. Also, this report, there have been a lot of reports of this. This is actually from London. It's obviously been a lot of reports about these incidents happening in the U.S. as well. Could be true, could be some foolishness. I know Cree even suggested that it could be like what happened with the riots, the socially fabricated disorder where white people just get some folks to go and act nutty, and then you can just blame it on black people, just show pictures. And, right, black people chimping out, to get some mileage off of that. That certainly could be. Bottom line, we do not need any more of white people's Zapsters. Their Jordans, all of that. We should not be wasting money. We have got major problems dealing with racist man, racist woman. As Dr. Cambon said, spend as little as possible on clothing. We just don't need it. We don't need their Zapsters. Leave it there. I will share, I think Pam, she was saying this in the chat room. Her line is open if she wants to comment herself, but I was just going to read the definition for great spectator. The term is in the Word Guide, Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. use this term to apply to non-white people in general, including people sometimes referred to as black, particularly people sometimes referred to as Negro or Negroid during the existence of white supremacy. Explanation. The term Great Spectator generally means that black people and or Negroes are basically onlookers. It means that black people generally do not do anything of great and or significant value themselves by their own will, but for the most part spend their time watching and waiting to see what white people will or will not do. The term also means that under white supremacy, no non-white person does anything of significant value that is not started, supervised, and or endorsed by white persons. The term means that under most conditions, black people are at best qualified to look and maybe to copy, but not to lead or start any activity that is constructive. The term great spectators. And I've been saying for a while, we do not need spectators to counter racism. We really need folks to be active. Everybody making an effort to get at minimum 1,000 people, 1,000 non-white people less confused, more informed about racism, white supremacy. You can't just take this information and sit on it. You really got to make an effort to be as active as you can and defining how you're going to be active, whatever you decide to do, blog, writing, books, films, programs, anything, posters, all of the above. You really got to use this information. You can't just sit back. And I know Pam has been a big advocate. Did you want to add anything to that, Pam? I think your line should be open.
Hi. I did want to add that, this is not a criticism. This is just an encouragement. I mean, we all have something to contribute. And I know sometimes myself, when Dr. Wellesley and Mr. Fuller call on the program, I feel a little more intimidated than asking questions. But if we can't overcome that small fear of talking to another person, who can't see us, how are we going to overcome the fears necessary to overcome white supremacy? So, I understand it. I'm not criticizing. I'm just suggesting, encouraging that, we all have to be participants. We got to build this spiritual energy. The prayer I did last night really sucked. And so I'll say it now that, we got to build some spiritual energy. Like Mr. Fuller said, he says, if you start doing things, things happen. And it doesn't have to be anything great or significant. It's just the act of doing something that builds up that energy. It builds up that intent. And I think for me personally, the Most High, I believe that when the help we need is out there, if they see that we sincerely want to change the system and that we're trying to help ourselves, I think it'll come. I think we've got a better chance of it coming if we do something than if we don't do something.
Agreed. I couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. I just got to get serious, focused, and being specific. I think being very specific, that's something that I try to keep in mind with my prayers, is to be specific about things that I want to happen. They say the devil is in the detail, right? So I try to be as specific as possible so he does not have very much room to wiggle and cause havoc. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to work on with my prayers. And I think that's important. I hope we'll have more broadcasts touching on that because I think we will need to incorporate the spiritual aspect. And I think many people, I won't say many, but I've had several people that I've spoken with, non-white people who've read Mr. Fuller's book, and they've said that for them, his work is very spiritual, whatever that means. That they feel like it is almost something that they can. It's difficult because this is not very codified, but something that they would see maybe in the New Age section, what they would call, I think, esoteric knowledge, just in the way that they look at it, for what it's worth. Yeah, I've heard that from quite a few folks who've read Mr. Fuller's book. Um, yeah, that's it. Please be active. Get out, right? Do things. Don't just sit on the information. Let's see, is anything else I wanted to get in? We'll be back tomorrow. Yolanda Spivey, she'll be on the program. The program time is 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. She has done a counter-racist experiment revealing racism, white supremacy in employment practices. She's a mother. I should have said that first and foremost. She's a mother, attempted mother. And we were talking about this so-called homosexual stuff. And she was saying, she doesn't really know what to think of it. She wasn't connecting homosexuality with racist plot against black people. And we were just talking about it, and she said, I was at the laundromat with my son. We're going to talk about this tomorrow. She said, I was at the laundromat with my son and the white guy that owns the laundromat. He called him a monkey, my son. And my son was like, he told him, I'm not a monkey. Don't call me that. I'm not an animal. I'm a boy. And the white guy was like, oh, the racist was like, oh, okay. And then later on, he's playing with her child and I think like picking him up and tickling him. And this white guy, he says, oh, your son is so beautiful. Oh, he's so handsome. And, oh, his lips are just gorgeous. And look at him. And she said that she just had a feeling. It just rubbed her the wrong way. And she said that I, immediately called my son. I was like, get over here. We can't. And, I'll just explain it to you later. And she said she just was thinking like, that just is not correct. Like, why would a adult white man be talking about, a gorgeous little boy and talking about his lips and things? Like, why would he be doing that? And I was just like, you really do not want white people handling your child. Sandusky aside, you do not want a racist fondling your child. And she was just like, that is so true. That's so true. And just, I think Mac Payne, he had codified suggestions about how you deal with white people when your child is around, because white people, they really will they will really flex their racism. I've experienced this. I don't even have children, where they will just take their liberties to come up and grab your child and start playing with them. And it's in color purple. For all the foolishness, it's in color purple. That's how Oprah goes to jail, Oprah Winfrey. But they will do that. They will still do that. About to be 2012 and they still do that. You really want to codify how you handle that, so that you don't end up in those situations, because, it very easily could be a Jerry Sandusky that's doing this thing. You should have that in mind. Anyway, but she was saying just thinking about that really made her revisit her thoughts on this whole homosexuality. Again, repeatedly, it's incorrect. It is a racist plot. We should not be invested in it. Mr. Fuller touched on that earlier in the program, but we'll be discussing this tomorrow. Yolanda Spivey, black female. Looking forward to finally getting her on the program. Guess the other thing, I guess, since it came up on this program about interracial, if you read the book review that I did for the Interracial Con Game, Pam and her co-author's brand new work, I did, other than when I was quoting the title, I did not use the term interracial. I think what I will do, I have strategies sometimes when I'm talking about sexual intercourse between a white person and a non-white person. Sometimes I'll just say what I just said. I'll just, bam, lay it out so we're very clear about what we're talking about. Often I will do that. Sometimes I'll do tragic arrangement, but when I do that, I generally have to go back and say what I just said, because a lot of people don't know what tragic arrangement means. Same thing for gutter sex, sexually sewer. I'll use those terms just to impact the thinking of non-white people who might be reading or listening to what I'm saying. But I generally just make it very explicit so that everybody, if you understand English, then you understand we're talking about sexual intercourse between a white person and a non-white person. And just if I'm writing, I will use interracial, but like if you look the counter-racist review that I did, I have interracial in quotes, or I have it in italics. I do something to signify that, there's something strange, unique about this term, and that I am most likely not using it, that I'm quoting somebody else, referencing someone else. I know it is popular. I know most victims are, unfortunately, very comfortable with that term. And in fact, I would say for a title, that's probably the best term to use if you want to get attention because of the dominance of racism, white supremacy. Again, this is what domination looks like. Racist terms, they are much more popular. They're in much greater circulation. Even the victims are more comfortable with terms that they have chosen to support their system. So interracial is going to be the best term to use for like a book title, just for people to find the work. I think Dr. Ronald Hall, he was on the program, and he talked about that too, how he wanted to use a term that was most accurate in his title, but his publicist, I suspect a white person, told him, if you want people to find the book, when they search for it, like go on search engines, libraries, things of that nature, you should pick the most popular term, which was a term that was not as accurate, that supported racism. So I think, I think it's good to have it in the title. People will find it easy that way, but I think there are lots of ways that you can get around having to use that term, or you can even do the slash. I use that sometimes, where like racism / white supremacy, I'll do interracial / tragic arrangement, gutter sex, that sort of thing, so that, just to highlight that that is not the best term to use in trying to work against their system. Does that make sense, Pam?
I agree. Even while I was listening to Mr. Fuller, I was thinking there's no way I can change the title to be, that long and think people are going to know what it's about, or they're going to. But I think it's important to maybe state in the book, which we did talk about there's only one race, but maybe we should have also clarified, or, like you said, put it in some kind of quotes to let people know that there's something else about the word that's incorrect or that is being used, but, for a particular reason. But I do think on a title, you kind of might have to, you got to do what you got to do so that people will know what the book is about. And at least you'll have a shot at reaching them. So I just don't see it being practical, changing the title to something else to attract attention of those people who are interested in those kind of relationships, for the good or the bad. But, I see what you're saying. And, I agree with Mr. Fuller. Just didn't think much about it until Justice asked me yesterday.
Right on. Always good to think about terms. Always good. But yes, I would definitely recommend the book. Lots of constructive information. I think any victims who check it out, they'll learn a ton about the incorrectness of sex between a white person, non-white person. The address again is TrojanHorse1.com. TrojanHorse1.com. And there's a sale. I checked the website. They have a sale until December 31st. You can save a couple bucks. You can get it for $17.95 if you order before December 31st. So if you got to get gifts, just want to get the book, tune in right now, TrojanHorse1.com. I will check. I think this might be Blacka. Blacka, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I have a piece to Pam and the rest of the chat room. Good to hear from you, Pam, as always. And I'm still listening to last night's show. I'm still listening to last night's show and program, excuse me. And before I say what I called in for, that I barely, and Gus, I swear I'm trying to do my best to control my emotions. I really am, but I guess it's just a character flaw of mine. But that when you played that clip of Robin Thicke, I just barely made it past that. Then I had to go and find the video and see him. God, I was just so. Anyway.
What did you think of the video? He's wearing all black. What were your thoughts when you saw the video?
First, I thought he was either high or drunk or something, and I watched about 30 seconds of it. That was all. I just couldn't do it. White folks just irritate me such. But anyway, like I said, I'm trying really hard to get past my character flaw and start wearing my emotions on my sleeve. But what I called in for was just to give people a little insight into those perfect families that we see, with the mother and the father and and the little dog and whatever else they got going on. It's a dude that I work with, a young dude. He's 20 years old. He lives with his well, actually, he's under my wing. I'm showing the ropes on a particular piece of equipment, and he lives. His mother, first of all, check this out. His mother was strung out on drugs for a long time when he was young. She finally went ahead and sucked on a pistol and ended that. He moves in with his aunt, his grandmother, his aunt, his mother's sister, down in Florida, where they just continuously beats him every single day for whatever he did. And this when he was early. I guess he was about 15 or 16 when this happened. This is what he's telling me. And he just got beat mercilessly every day is what he told me. So his grandmother, his mother's mother, come and get him out of that situation, him and his brother. And he comes and live with his grandmother, and he's been there for the last how many ever years up until today. And you want to talk about, I mean, I know some dysfunctional families, black families, you know, and I have never heard anything as dysfunctional as his whole story. And it just dawned on me, a lot of these white families that we see and want to portray themselves to be so wholesome and all-American, if we could just have a little look inside those doors, half of them families are barely together, and most of them are just insane at least. Anyway, his grandfather's like, I forgot how old he is, but he's up in age. Just came to find out that he had to get his gallbladder removed, on top of having prostate cancer, on top of diabetes. And his grandfather's wife, his grandmother, does nothing. Everything she cooks, she fries, and what she doesn't fry, she covers in gravy. It just feeds this to him, and he's half dead now. So my guesstimate is she's trying to kill him. And his grandmother, he tells me, does nothing but drink wine on the rocks all day, every day. It's like just boxes of wine she has stacked up in the garage, and she just drinks wine all day, every day. Just a constant blur is what life is to her. Just a haze of drunkenness. And I'm looking at this dude, and he's always had everything he ever wanted, cars, and I mean he's had his first car before I could even imagine having my own car. And I'm just thinking, you know, if I didn't know any better, I would think this was just a perfect situation. His grandmother and his grandfather's taking care of him, and you know everything is lovely. They live in a nice house, have a pool out there, and a lake in the back out there. Grandfather has a Mercedes SUV. Grandmother has one of those little sporty convertible two-seat roadster Mercedes. And, you know, life is just really nice over there at that house over there. In actuality, they're soaked in debt, and the grandmother's soaked in alcohol, and the grandfather has one foot in the grave, and the other one is on a banana peel. But they can portray this role that, you know, we're just this wholesome white family, and it just goes on, and we believe it, and then we buy into it, and we suck it on both accounts because we think that's what we want, and then we also put up with the racism, and the whole reality of the situation is none of it is true. Everybody's in a boat that's sinking, and we're trying to rearrange the deck chairs. Anyway, that's just my little input for tonight.
Wow, that is funny.
Yeah. You know, it reminds me what you just said of something that I wanted to bring up last night. I read another article online about Britons think so-called biracial people are the most attractive. And when I read the comments that followed that article, there was a lot of white people saying, no, we don't. So I wanted to bring up the fact that, you know, these polls trying to encourage us to think one way or another. There's a lot of polls and so-called studies and all this other garbage saying that people consider people of black people with a white parent as the most attractive. I would just say, you know, be careful about the polls. The polls are just made up. I mean, I could sit here on the phone right now and make up a poll. I could walk through the house and ask 4 people what they thought, and then I could write it down, or I could write down something else. Then I could say I did a poll. So I would just, you know, like to throw that out there, that don't believe the polls. You know, who's ever polled you? Nobody's ever polled me. Nobody's ever asked my opinion about anything. So they're trying to really encourage a lot of breeding with white people. And also look at the commercials and be aware, and make sure you tell your kids. All they have now on the commercials, from what I can see, are black children with a white parent. They went from that to have, black females now are black females who look like they have a white parent, and now they've even moved to the males, the adult males. There are a lot of them. So they've got a whole lot of people representing us in commercials and print that are people with a white parent who now I guess supposed to be the better blacks. So, just be aware that they're constantly programming us to think there's something wrong with us and to get us to go and jump into bed with white people. So I just meant to throw that out there last night.
Hey, Pam, what I've been taking note of, and I really try to stay away from television too much, but the racially ambiguous is what I'm seeing a lot of. I mean, you don't know if you don't know what they are actually, and I'm thinking that's like kind of I don't know what the plan is behind that, other than just
well, they're promoting breeding, promoting us to go ahead and dilute ourselves. Or they're just saying that, they don't really want to see brown and black faces on TV. I think television is getting whiter and whiter.
Well, I sent you and Gus both. I sent it to you earlier, but I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at it. But it was a commercial that was coming on before, right before the holiday last week, about the chocolate diamonds, which I had never heard of until I saw that commercial. And I forgot which jewelry store it is. And they were talking about the chocolate diamonds, and throughout the whole commercial, they're talking about chocolate diamonds, and I'm like, the hell is a chocolate? Anyway, they said because get your woman or whoever a chocolate diamond because nobody wants to be vanilla. I'm like, damn, really? Well, I sent it to both you and Gus earlier tonight.
Okay, I'll check it out. Wow, I didn't see that.
I was tripping because I never heard of a chocolate diamond before.
Me either. One commercial I saw happen, I guess they run it about 2 or 3 years, that really they didn't really bug me, but I kind of said, wow. They had a Pampers commercial, and it was like some kind of Christmas music around Christmas time, and they showed every baby but a black baby. And I looked at that, and I said, that can't be an accident. So then when I saw them run it again this year, because I think the first time I saw it was last year, I saw them running again this year. And they still, again, didn't have any black babies. The babies, I think they had an Asian baby, they had a white baby, they had a baby that seemed to be a little ambiguous, might have been Hispanic, I'm not sure, but no brown and no dark babies. And I said, these people. But again, once again, they're putting it out there that brown and dark is not correct. Brown and dark is something that you shouldn't want to be, even though they can't wait to jump into bed with it. But brown and dark people are being made invisible, particularly dark and brown women. And so we should be aware of that. I don't know whether we should decide we're not going to purchase from these manufacturers. I don't know what the correct response is, but we definitely got to start telling our kids the truth about racism. We got to start talking to our kids because the black doll, white doll experiment is still alive and well. And our kids are being devastated. And we're just sitting here silent. We're not saying anything. That's outrageous.
Well, I don't sit silently, even though I get into, I have to avoid some confusion, especially at work, because we have a lot of temps in there, and they have a lot of temps in there now, and a little more confusion, but I don't sit by silently and let the ignorance just pass me by. It was one young lady last night, as a matter of fact, that surprised me. She was in, I forgot what they were talking about over there, and I was just overhearing it. And she was saying that as long as they put stuff on television and say that it's expensive, black folks will buy it. And we just keep buying into it and buying into it and buying into it. And it surprised me that she said that because, I wasn't even sure that she was, had that kind of a thought process. But it gave me a little hope that maybe, something is getting through and we don't. But then you counter that with the whole Michael Jordan sneaker thing, and that's, I don't know what to think about. Zapsters, correct. And why is that such a big story anyway? Because it happens all the time. I can't understand why that particularly is a big story this time around, because they always do that.
They've been doing it for years. I remember they've been talking about that for years. I remember like 20 years ago, a black person they reported got killed when the shoes came out. This was 20 years ago, and Michael, he was playing at the time, so they had a big press conference, and some white person asked him, why didn't you, the racism of it, some white person asked him, why didn't you say something? What do you have to say about this, Mike? And
like what?
And he didn't. I don't even remember what his response was. This was a big to do. Like he didn't have a comment or something to that effect, or he didn't make him do it. Something. He gave some sort of response to that nature. And they, what? Oh my God, he doesn't even care when black people shoot each other in the streets over his shoes. And oh my God, what a disgrace. I mean, it was another example of, let's make sure that black people are in conflict with black people. They'll fuss at him instead of white people who are most to blame for all of it. But this has been happening for 20 years. Like, anywho, and I was thinking that too. Their holiday season, this happens every day in December. They have reports every day about muggings and beating over. You took the last pothole. I mean, this is every day during December.
But the thing about it was, of course, it's silly for people to be fighting over trash, but they had them white folks out there. They was stabbing and pepper spraying and all kind of carrying on during the Friday after Thanksgiving. And I mean, they made some, it was some coverage, but not as much as this. Yeah, I don't know about what you just called it, but they didn't carry on like they did with this Michael Jordan thing and these sneakers. How much are these sneakers anyway?
$180 plus tax.
How much?
100.
How much did you say?
$180 plus tax.
And we're in a recession.
So they say.
So they say. And people fighting to give somebody $180 plus tax. Well.
That's what happens when you have self-esteem devastation, though. People are desperate to find a way to feel good, and all that really to me does is make it very clear that our young people, and not just them, but our young people are suffering from massive self-esteem devastation, and they need these labels, they need all this stuff because they've been made to feel worthless without it. So that's something we got to work on.
But the guys that I'm working with at my job, some of the temps there, I mean, they can go like 5 days straight. Well, we were working 6 days the last few weeks, and they can wear a different pair of brand new sneakers every day, but they're working a temp job, and I mean, I don't question them, but I'm just curious as to how is it that you can do it. I don't know.
MasterCard is doing well. I think that is part of the answer. Why people are all about credit and live beyond your means purchasing things. I saw MasterCard in the so-called recession. MasterCard, I think they were one of the top 10 Fortune 500 companies for 2011. They've been doing very well. So I suspect they probably play a role in black people having these $180 shoes, victims, period, having these $180 shoes, and other items to camouflage our lack of self-respect.
And look
well, I just saw, I just saw a story earlier tonight where the recording artist called Neely, I think that's his name, Neely. He's being sued by one of the credit card companies for failure to pay. I think that's his name, Neely. So telling him how much he owes these people, financing some crazy lifestyles to flaunt in front of other people who can't afford it.
If it's Nelly, he made a song, an ode to Nike's Air Force Ones. If it's Nelly,
I think that's who it is. Nike didn't break him off a little something. Nope, because they never do. And we got this thing. It's a thing in the South where and it's highly embarrassing. Where they got these cars, they call them and Gus, I'm sure you've seen this. They call, and they may have it up there where you are, Pam. They call down here they call them donks in Georgia and Florida, South Carolina, in this general area. They call donks, and these cars that are sitting up on these gigantic rims. I don't know what size rims, and they have like these trademark labels on them. Like I seen one with Lucky Charms and one I saw with Cheerios and just stuff like that. Just clown mobile. I call them clown mobiles.
Zapsters.
And they Zapsters. And these people are just like big gigantic rolling billboards, and I'm sure they're not getting paid by these companies to advertise, poison. I'm sure they're not. I don't know what the hell is wrong with us, man.
Wow, that's hard. That's hard. Woo! I thank the creator that I have never seen such a thing. That's hard to take. Like Cheerios and Lucky Charms. Woo! That's worse than Gangsters. That's worse than woo! Cheerios and Lucky Charms. That is. Anyway, we're going to prove Universal Man, Universal Woman is coming. We have about 3 minutes left. Anything you all want to share before we wrap up? Feel free.
I'm going to put a link in the chat room for someone to click on real quick if they want to take a peek at what I'm talking about as far as these cars go. I'm sure most people know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I just put a link in the chat room. But that's all I have.
Anything, Pam?
Yeah, just to say, you guys out there that are waiting on your reviews, you know who you are. Reviews are, really helpful. I know. I procrastinate too. But you know what? I feel like the more that we stop disappointing ourselves and stop having to say, man, I meant to do this, I meant to do something, the more we stop doing that, the stronger we get. I know that whenever I don't do something I think I'm supposed to do, it just kind of tears me down to some degree. So I said we got to start, building ourselves up and getting stronger because some tough days are coming ahead, and if we got to start taking this seriously, and that's all I wanted to say. Just be constructive, find some kind of way to be constructive, and you will feel a lot better. You'll feel stronger. You'll feel like you're doing something instead of feeling so helpless. Because I think a lot of us really feel helpless because this is a monumental problem, and it can really kind of make you feel like, what's the point? But, like Mr. Fuller said, what else you got to do?
Yeah.
Do something,
Hang on. The address, TrojanHorse1.com. TrojanHorse1.com. We will be back tomorrow evening. That would be Friday, December 30th. If there are parents, attempted parents out there, if you have children who are informed about racism, white supremacy, Justice would like to watch Madagascar 2, I think she said 2. Madagascar 2. To do a study session on that with informed non-white children. She was thinking this weekend. I was thinking that might be short notice. So in the next, we'll say anytime in the next 10 days, we'll just put it there. Anytime in the next 10 days, if you have non-white children and you are okay, have them watch Madagascar, take notes, picking out racism, white supremacy. We can have a dialogue about it. Shoot me an email and let me know. Untiljustice@gmail.com would be very, very, I think, constructive to get young folks who have some understanding of racism, white supremacy, and are attempting to think when they watch films, television, period, really. So, yeah, that in the next 10 days. This was also suggested from a listener where they had said that not having people to bounce ideas off of, not being able to be in dialogue with other victims about counter-racism, to get practice with the words, being more codified in the way that you speak about racism, white supremacy, that a lot of people who listen to the program don't have that. Excuse me. And I thought it might be constructive to have a program where it's just for people to call in. Like if you have ideas that you want to bounce off other people, if it's something that you want to comment, like something you heard on a program that you know, wanted to say something about, but you weren't able to call in live, just anything, you know, if you just want to have, you know, dialogue about a topic, if it's 3 or 4 people online and you just want to hear people's views on a specific topic, it can be something that's happening in the news, anything. If you're having trouble on your job and you want to hear different folks' views on ways that you might be able to handle that difficulty, we can just have an open program to give people that opportunity to dial in. I think I was willing to try for this Saturday. I was thinking it might be cool to have a program Saturday evening, that is so-called New Year's Eve, where people could call in, an alternative to being out doing something non-constructive with alcohol and all the potential problems that that could bring about. This Saturday, if people want to just dial in, share views, that sort of thing, we could examine some of the things that have happened in 2011, like what do we think the biggest moves racists were making 2011, what do we expect to be happening for 2012, just again to give people opportunity to bounce ideas off and get comfortable talking. Yeah, it's not even a program for me to chat. Like I'm totally willing to just sit on my mute button and introduce people if they want to talk about whatever. But just to give folks an opportunity to dialogue with other victims. And I'd be down to do that Saturday. That said, we'll be back tomorrow. Justice's blog is justdojustice.today.blogspot.com. Justdojustice.today.blogspot.com. Tomorrow's broadcast, Friday, December 30th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Yolanda Spivey should be constructive. Yeah, that'll be it for the day. Oh, and Mr. Fuller, yeah, Word Guide, Code Book. The address is tiny.cc/Fuller in all caps. Tiny.cc/Fuller in all caps. Pam, you want to take second crack at the prayer? You said you were not pleased with your prayer effort yesterday. If you want to take
I'll wait until next time. I think I saw some questions on the chat like, who are we praying to? So I'm going to work on it. No, I'm going to take a pass. So I can only take so much humiliation.
Right on. I saw that question too. The Creator, not white people, not white God, not white Jesus.
Right.
The Creator, who is responsible for putting us all here. Or at least that's who I'm thinking of. Let's see. Blacker, did you just see if we can include everyone in saying the prayer? Pam did it yesterday. I've done it before. Would you like to do our prayer to close out the program today?
Oh, I've been stopped doing that a long time ago. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. No apologies. No apologies. There are many worries, but that is not one of them. All right. I will do the prayer to close. I guess I'll check, unless somebody who's listening in, unless they want to do the prayer, I'll check the phone line. I'll do it unless someone is. Oh, I didn't even see the hand. 818, I'm trying to end the program. 818, did you have a question or a comment?
Well, we've gotten way off the subject now, but I was just going to input that while black people are spending $180 to get Michael Jordan shoes, Michael Jordan has just proposed to a suspected racist.
Yep.
So he intends to marry a suspected racist woman. And any money that you put, I don't think that he gets all of it, but any money that you put toward purchasing his product, should something happen to him and he die while he's in that marriage or they divorce, a significant amount of your money will be going to the white team and not just Nike.
Shameful.
Pumpkin, sorry. Ebony News Channel.blogspot.com. Get Pam's book. You will overstand the incorrectness of that, the interracial con game. I will do our prayer to close out. Thank you, everybody, for listening into the program. I hope it was a constructive investment of your Thursday evening. We humbly ask the Creator for assistance in solving the greatest problem in the universe. We ask for massive assistance in correcting our behavior. There are many things that we are doing, activities that are not in our best interest, that are helping white people maintain domination worldwide over us. Please help us in correcting those behaviors as soon as possible. Please help us deactivate the white chip in our brain. I believe all of us, every single black person on the planet, is suffering from a white chip where it's like having a little white person inside that misdirects us, gives us incorrect thoughts, makes us think poorly of black people, including ourselves. Really do everything. Please assist us in every way possible in totally eradicating that white chip and that racist way of thinking that we have been infected with since the time we were conceived. Please help us do everything possible to minimize conflict with other non-white people and to become as clear and accurate with our communication as possible. We have massive, myself at the top of the list, we have massive communication failures and deficiencies. Please help us correct and improve our communication as much as possible. This would be phenomenal into minimizing conflict. We could really make massive progress if we could improve our communication, choosing better terms, and just being clearer in what it is that we're trying to convey. Please help us to become comfortable. This is a major one. Please help us come to understand white people are here for the purpose of maintaining and practicing white supremacy above all else. As resistant as we are to believing that, please help us in removing that faulty concept from our brain. It is like a weight on every black person attempting to think that there are some good white people. There are some white people somewhere in the universe who do not practice racism. That is killing us. It is hampering our ability to solve this problem. Please allow us to become comfortable thinking about white people as our enemy. Please help us become comfortable acknowledging and recognizing white people are our enemy. The more comfortable we become with this concept, visualizing them dying, our enemies suffering, our enemies in pain, the closer we come to that, the quicker we will get this problem solved. I know that is the total antithesis of the way we have been trained to think, to feel. Please help us change our thinking and feeling. That will result in a change in behavior, change in thought, speech, actions, feelings, conduct. Assistance in solving this problem as soon as possible. Thank you. Amen. Tune into the broadcast tomorrow if you think it would be a constructive investment of your Friday evening. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cows signing out. Thank you.